Chapter 3002. Alright, don't talk nonsense, I won't take your life. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and interrupted Bai Long's pleading. Stay here, I'll go take a look at them. After that, he handed the God Pagoda over to Bai Long for safekeeping. Then, he entered the 6th level of the God Pagoda. After flying for a while in the distorted space, he found Yunyao and Jiku. Both of them weren't in closed-door cultivation and were sitting together drinking tea and chatting, exchanging their insights on cultivation. Even though their strength had improved very quickly, it was still not enough. Not long ago, both of them had reached the half-step Divine Monarch realm. But both of them had encountered a bottleneck, and were unable to break through to the Divine Monarch realm. So they had no choice but to end their cultivation and gather together to exchange and discuss. Wu Shuang also stopped cultivating and sat beside Yunyao. She still looked like she was 6 or 7 years old, delicate and adorable. She drank the God Du tea obediently, and listened attentively to the conversation between Yunyao and Jiku. Her eyes revealed a pondering expression. Apparently she had gained a lot. Ji Tianqing's sudden arrival surprised Yunyao, Jiku and Wu Shuang. Both of them stopped their conversation and looked towards him with a smile on their faces. Tianqing, why are you here? Brother Tianqing, are you done with your matters? Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded, looking at them with a gentle gaze. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Both of your strengths have increased greatly. At this moment, Ji Wushuang stretched out her arms and ran towards Ji Tianqing in surprise, shouting, Father, you haven't come to visit us for a long time. Shuang'er misses you. A crisp voice, a smile from the bottom of her heart, and a childish voice. Ji Tianqing's heart was touched and he was filled with guilt. He quickly opened his arms and hugged Ji Wushuang. Shuang, father hasn't come to visit you these few days. Have you been cultivating diligently? Ji Wushuang hugged his neck and replied without hesitation, of course, I've broken through to the 8th stage realm. However, I've recently encountered a bottleneck, and am temporarily unable to break through to the 9th level. At this point, Ji Wushuang curled his lips and revealed an ashamed and self-blaming expression. Ji Tianqing rubbed her head and said dotingly, Shuang'er is the smartest. Don't blame yourself or feel dejected. Wasn't it just a small bottleneck? Tell me, what difficulties have you encountered? Ji Wushuang shook his head and said, Father, you and Mother haven't seen each other for a long time. You definitely have a lot to talk about. You guys can chat first. We'll talk about my cultivation bottleneck later. Ji Tianqing pinched her little cheeks and said in a gratified tone, Shuang'er has really grown up. You've also become sensible. Your thoughts are actually so meticulous. Alright, I'll help you settle it later. After he finished speaking, he looked at Yunyao and Jiku and asked, I heard that the two of you have both reached the half-step Divine Lord realm but have encountered a bottleneck and are temporarily unable to break through. I'm currently in the capital of Bloodflame Divine Country. I'll be staying here for a while. The capital is prosperous and affluent. Moreover, the Divine Blood ceremony will be held in 2 days. It will definitely be very lively. After you guys came to the Divine World, you guys have been cultivating in seclusion in the Divine Pagoda and have never relaxed. Why don't you take this opportunity to stay in the Longwind Courtyard for a few days and rest and relax? Hearing him say so, Yunyao and Jiku looked at each other and revealed puzzled expressions. However, the two of them understood the reason when they saw each other's reaction. Yunyao revealed a faint smile and shook her head gently. Tianqing, although we've encountered a cultivation bottleneck, Ku and I are discussing how to solve it. The two of us have never thought of leaving the Divine Pagoda to rest and relax outside, because we know that you don't have a fixed residence now and have enemies on all sides. We haven't reached the Divine Lord realm yet. We can't help you or protect ourselves. It's very likely that we'll drag you down. Therefore, it's better for us to wait until we break through to the Divine Lord realm before leaving the Divine Pagoda. It's more suitable for us to stay by your side. Jiku also nodded in agreement and said, Big Brother Tianqing, you must have something important to do in the capital of Bloodflame Divine Country. There must be experts gathered here and danger lurks everywhere. At such a crucial time we won't cause trouble for you. Moreover, Big Senior Sister and I have never thought of leaving the Divine Pagoda to rest and relax. Who told you all this? It must be that fellow Little White again, right? This fellow has a lot of tricks up his sleeves. Jiku pretended to be angry and frowned, scolding White Dragon. In the bedroom, White Dragon, who was holding the divine pagoda and waiting quietly, sneezed inexplicably and felt a chill on his back. Although he didn't know what Ji Tianqing and Yunyao talked about, he had a premonition. However, he had a bad premonition that he was going to be scolded again. Ji Tianqing helped White Dragon to smooth things over. He smiled and shook his head, saying, "It has nothing to do with White Dragon. I'm just worried that you'll feel depressed and bored after being in seclusion for a long time." However, Jiku didn't believe him. She chuckled and said, "Big brother Tianqing, don't make excuses for little White. It must be that he can't stand the loneliness and wants to go out to play. That's why he's using us as an excuse." Ji Tianqing didn't comment and quickly changed the topic. "Alright, let's not talk about this anymore. Since you don't want to leave the divine pagoda, I'll help you solve your cultivation bottlenecks first. Come, tell me about the problems you've encountered." Yunyao and Jiku nodded at the same time and said in unison, "You go first." Seeing that the two of them had such tacit understanding, Ji Tianqing smiled and said, "Cuckoo, you go first." Thus, Jiku recounted the difficulties she had encountered in her cultivation in detail. Although she had also become a peak divine lord 1,000 years ago, logically speaking, with her cultivation experience, she shouldn't have encountered any problems at the peak divine lord realm. However, in this life, she had inherited the legacy of the divine beast Phoenix, and cultivated the 5-colored divine fire and dozens of demon Dao divine powers. This was something she had never come into contact with in her previous life. With the memories and experience of a peak divine lord, it was natural for her to encounter a bottleneck when cultivating the peak divine king's divine powers. Fortunately, after she told him all the problems, Ji Tianqing only used 15 minutes to find the corresponding solution in his memory. For problems that could be solved according to the symptoms, he directly said the solution. For problems that couldn't be solved directly, he could also beat around the bush, hint, and enlighten Jiku. In this way, Jiku saw the clear sky through the clouds and immediately came to a realization. The problems that were difficult to solve previously were immediately solved. The hazy and vague concepts in the past also suddenly became clear. Jiku's problem was solved and she became full of confidence. She was confident that she could break through the bottleneck and reach the first level of the Divine Lord realm within 10 days. Jiku's problem was solved. It was Yunyao's turn to talk about the problems she had encountered, as well as the obscure and uncertain perplexities. Originally, she had fused with the 6 divine pearls and awakened most of Goddess Yaoguang's memories. However, what she was currently cultivating was Goddess Yaoguang's divine Dao inheritance, which were all top-notch divine powers and consummate skills. However, there were still some missing memories in her divine soul, and the most important memories had not been awakened. This caused her to occasionally encounter difficulties when comprehending the divine Dao and cultivating king-level divine powers and secret techniques. Chapter 3003. Ji Tianqing listened to Yunyao's question seriously. It took him 4 hours to come up with a solution. Of course, he had a way to solve most of the problems. He didn't have a targeted and definite solution to some of the problems. However, he could draw inferences and give the most suitable suggestion. As long as Yunyao tried a few more times, she would definitely be able to solve all the problems. Just like that, Yunyao's cultivation problem was solved. She was also full of confidence and anticipation that she would be able to break through to the Divine Lord realm in a few days. Ji Tianqing solved their cultivation bottlenecks. Finally, he looked at Ji Wushuang, who was in his arms, and was about to ask her what problem she had encountered. Unexpectedly, Wushuang was lying on his shoulder, quietly in a daze. Her delicate little face revealed a thoughtful expression, as if she was thinking about something. There was also a hint of melancholy in her big, clear eyes. Ji Tianqing, Yunyao, and the others immediately saw the problem. "Shuang-er, what are you thinking about?" "Oh right, Shuang-er didn't say anything for such a long time just now. She was very quiet. I can see that Shuang-er has something on her mind." Ji Wushuang came back to her senses and quickly shook her head when she saw the 3 pairs of concerned eyes. "I'm fine. Don't worry and don't guess blindly." She pouted and revealed an innocent smile. However, she was still young and too innocent. How could she hide it from Ji Tianqing, Yunyao, and Jiku? Ji Tianqing looked at her lovingly and scratched her little nose with his finger. He asked Shuang, what were you thinking about just now? Tell Dad and Mom? Do I really have to tell them? Wu Shuang looked up at Ji Tianqing. She still wanted to keep her little secret, and didn't want to reveal it. However, Ji Tianqing, Yuniao, and the other two said firmly, of course. If there's anything that makes you unhappy, you must tell us. Shuanger, be good. Tell us. Ji Wushuang hesitated for a moment before whispering, Father, I want to see what the God realm is like. Her voice was very soft and lacking in confidence. After she finished speaking, she lowered her head, not daring to look at her parents' reaction. She expressed her wish carefully, but she was worried that it would cause trouble for her parents or that she would be rejected. Back then, she was born in the 5 elements world of the lower planes. However, ever since she was born, she spent 95% of her time cultivating in the divine pagoda. The only people by her side were her mother, Jiku, Qianyu, and Black Dragon. Only Ji Tianqing had left the divine tower to participate in the battle before he conquered the major galaxies and destroyed the heaven-punishing race. After everyone ascended to the God realm, she never left the God pagoda. What exactly was the legendary eternal God realm like? She didn't know that she didn't even have a vague shadow in her heart. She couldn't even begin to fantasize. Even though she knew that her parents did not allow her to leave the pagoda in order to protect her. Letting her cultivate in the distorted spacetime was also to let her grow faster. However, she was only a young girl after all. Her temperament was very pure and simple. She also longed to leave this cold and dark space and see the outside world. Blue sky, white clouds, green water, green mountains, and hundreds of flowers. These things that couldn't be more ordinary were very distant to her. However, she was too obedient and sensible. She had always hidden her true thoughts in the bottom of her heart, and did not express them. Now, for the first time, she expressed her wish to her parents. It was inevitable that she would feel uneasy. Ji Tianqing, Yuniao, and Jiku immediately quieted down. The 3 of them looked at each other. Their expressions became complicated. Their eyes were filled with self-blame and guilt. This was because they had guessed Wu Shuang's thoughts. They also understood their own negligence. The atmosphere was a little heavy. Wu Shuang pursed her lips and hugged Ji Tianqing's neck. She comforted him softly, Father, I'm sorry. I'm not sensible. Don't be troubled. I was just saying. You don't have to take it seriously. His daughter was so smart, obedient, and sensible. Ji Tianqing felt even more guilty and distressed. He stretched out his hands and cupped Wu Shuang's cheeks. He said in a serious tone, Wu Shuang, it's us who have let you down. We neglected your feelings. Although you are the apple of our eye and the smartest and most adorable child in the world, we owe you. But we owe you. We couldn't let you have a normal childhood like other children. I promise you that I will take you out of the God pagoda and see what the God realm is like. Ji Tianqing made a solemn promise. A faint smile appeared on Wu Shuang's little face. Her eyes were filled with gratitude. She was about to speak when Yuniao quickly shook her head and refused. She persuaded Wu Shuang, it's true that we owe you. However, we still have many opportunities to make up for it in the future. However, right now, your father is in a dangerous situation. He can't accompany you for the time being. Jiku also held Wu Shuang's little hand and persuaded, Wu Shuang, please be considerate of your father one more time. After this matter is over, let him make it up to you, okay? The smile on Wu Shuang's little face gradually faded. A trace of disappointment flashed through her big clear eyes. However, she nodded obediently and said, okay. Ji Tianqing's heart ached when he saw this. He couldn't bear it and said in a firm tone, Yao Yao Cuckoo, stay in the God pagoda and cultivate. Break through to the God monarch realm. I will bring Wu Shuang to the Longwind courtyard for a few days and play in the King City for a few days. No matter what, even if the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom changes its monarch, it's not as important as me accompanying my daughter. No matter what danger there is, I will protect Wu Shuang well. It's decided. Since he had already made up his mind, Yuniao and Jiku wouldn't object anymore. Ji Wushuang raised her head and looked at her father. Her thin lips were tightly pursed and her big clear eyes were covered with a layer of mist. Ever since she was born, she had spent very little time with her father. In her impression and cognition, her father had always been cold and dignified. Only today did she know that her mother didn't lie to her. Her father was indeed the most domineering expert who loved her the most. Having a father who doted on her so much and was so powerful and domineering was her greatest pride. However, the only regret was that her brother wasn't by everyone's side. If her parents could go to the Dragon Realm as soon as possible and rescue her brother, how great would it be if the family could be reunited? Wushuang prayed silently in her heart. Ji Tianqing reminded Yunyao and Jiku before leaving the God Pagoda with Wushuang. Yunyao and Jiku collected their thoughts and hurriedly went into seclusion to cultivate. Both of them secretly made up their minds to break through to the God Monarch realm as soon as possible. At that time they would be able to accompany Ji Tianqing and help him take care of Wushuang. That way, Ji Tianqing could also concentrate on handling matters and dealing with crises. Swoosh! A white light flashed and Ji Tianqing brought Wushuang back to the room. Chapter 3004. Seeing Ji Tianqing and Ji Wushuang appear, Bai Long was startled. He returned the divine pagoda to Ji Tianqing and asked doubtfully, "Master, you only brought junior sister out to play? What about the two mistresses? Don't they plan to come out for some fresh air?" Ji Tianqing shook his head and explained, "I helped them solve the bottleneck. They want to cultivate in seclusion and break through to the Divine Lord realm as soon as possible." "I see." Bai Long quickly nodded, indicating that he understood. Ji Wushuang stared at Bai Long and pouted. "Cuckoo, mother didn't guess wrong. It was senior brother Bai who made the decision on his own, and used mother as an excuse." Bai Long was embarrassed. He explained with a smile, "Little junior sister, you've wronged me. I'm just being nice. You see, the two mistresses are so bored cultivating they should come out to relax, right? And you? If I didn't remind master, would you come out to play?" Wushuang thought for a moment, and it seemed to be reasonable, so she didn't argue with Bai Long anymore. Bai Long successfully fooled his junior sister, and he snickered in his heart, secretly rejoicing. Ji Tianqing saw clearly, but he didn't point it out and was too lazy to pay attention to Bai Long. He held Wushuang's little hand and said gently, "Wushuang, this is where father is currently staying, called Changfeng Courtyard. Let's go. Father will take you around the manor first." Ji Wushuang quickly nodded, her little face revealing a happy smile. Then, the father and daughter held hands and walked out of the room, strolling around the manor. Bai Long had nothing to do, so he could only follow behind the two of them, acting as a guard and follower. Wushuang hadn't left the divine pagoda for many years. Even if she was just strolling around the Changfeng courtyard, she was in a happy mood and laughed continuously. "Father, is this the manor where the gods live? Apart from being more magnificent than the mortal world's houses, there isn't much difference? I always thought that the gods of the divine realm lived in the sea of clouds or in caves. Father, the divine power here is so rich. It's a treasure land for cultivation. Wow! There are so many flowers and plants over there. So beautiful. There are butterflies and bees in this season. Father, did you secretly do something?" Wushuang seemed to be particularly excited. Her small figure shuttled back and forth in the manor. She felt that everything was strange and interesting. There were hundreds of blooming flowers, a dark green bamboo forest, verdant pine trees, and a lotus pond full of lotus seeds. Even the flocks of spirit birds, butterflies, and flying ants were the targets of her observation. She was like a curious baby, carefully observing everything in the manor. Normally, she was very quiet and didn't speak much. Today, she spoke dozens of times more than usual, and her clear and melodious laughter never stopped. Ji Tianqing was not only patient, but he also enjoyed this rare moment of warmth. He followed closely behind Wushuang and patiently answered all her questions, looking at her smiling face that was like a flower, looking at her jumping around, looking at her dancing with the butterflies among the flowers. He watched as she flew into the sky and flew side by side with all kinds of spirit birds. This scene made him smile dotingly. At this moment, he'd completely let go of his grudges and schemes to accompany his daughter with all his heart. At first, the white dragon felt a little bored. Later, he was also infected by Wushuang's naivety and happiness. He actually didn't care about his image, and played with Wushuang, trying his best to make her happy. The many maids and guards in the manor all knew that Ji Tianqing's background was mysterious and noble. Wherever Ji Tianqing went, the surrounding guards and maids would respectfully bow and quietly retreat. After the crowd retreated, they would gather in groups of 3 to 5 and whisper to each other. Everyone was very curious. Wasn't young Master Tianqing alone? Why did a white-haired young man appear beside him? And a noble, beautiful, naive, and adorable little girl? The most important thing was that astonishingly beautiful and adorable little girl's appearance and temperament were actually a little similar to young Master Tianqing. For a moment, all kinds of guesses and discussions spread among the guards and maids. Did you see? This afternoon, young Master Tianqing brought a young man and a little girl to play in the manor. We all saw it. That little girl is so beautiful and adorable. She's simply a masterpiece of God. How beautiful do you think the girl's mother is? By the way, haven't you thought about the relationship between that little girl and young Master Tianqing? I think that little girl and young Master Tianqing look a little alike. They might be brother and sister or father and daughter. Don't make wild guesses. I heard the little girl call him father. That's young Master Tianqing's daughter. Gosh, young Master Tianqing actually has a daughter? What about Sir Celestial Zhenhong? That's right. At noon I saw Sir Celestial Zhenhong. She seemed to be very emotional. She trotted all the way back to her residence and hid. She served young Master Tianqing at noon. Of course she was emotional and ashamed to see anyone. But young Master Tianqing already has a daughter. Sister Zhenhong served him in bed. Will there be any results? Sir Celestial Zhenhong served young Master Tianqing in bed. That's a task. Between them, it could only be a short-lived marriage, a play on the field. She actually hopes to get close to that young master? She's thinking too much, isn't she? Alas! Too noble and too outstanding, in fact the most fickle and ungrateful. Even if that young master slept with Sister Zhenhong, he wouldn't take responsibility. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought his daughter around the manor for a stroll. You say if Sister Zhenhong knew about this, how sad she would be. Usually, Changfeng Courtyard was always empty. The third prince didn't live here. He only used it to entertain distinguished guests. As a result, the guards and maids of Changfeng Courtyard were very idle. Often there was no task to do for a few years. People who were too idle liked to gossip. They could talk about trivial things for a long time. As a result, in just 2 hours the news spread throughout the manor. Not only the 100 maids, but even the 300 guards also knew what had happened today. As a result, the manor was full of discussions about Ji Tianqing and Sir Zhenhong, as well as Ji Tianqing's daughter. Countless people felt sorry for Sir Zhenhong, and a small number of people's impression of Ji Tianqing became very bad. And Ji Tianqing knew all of this like the back of his hand. He accompanied Wu Shuang for the whole afternoon, and walked around the entire Changfeng Courtyard. But secretly, his divine sense had been covering the entire manor. Everything that happened in the manor couldn't escape his detection. After sunset, he returned to his residence with Wu Shuang and White Dragon. Wu Shuang played around for the whole afternoon and was a little tired. So Ji Tianqing let her rest in the room, and White Dragon guarded outside the door. He went to the conference hall and summoned Lai Fu, Sir Zhenhong, and the 3 captains of the guards for a temporary meeting. Chapter 3005. Night fell. The conference hall was brightly lit. Lai Fu, Zhenhong, and the 3 guard captains stood respectfully in the hall. Ji Tianqing sat at the head of the table, looking dignified and looking down at the 5 people indifferently. The atmosphere in the hall was oppressive. Lai Fu and the others were nervous and had a dignified expression. This was the first time that Ji Tianqing officially called them to discuss in the hall, since he moved into the Changfeng Courtyard. The 5 people could feel Ji Tianqing's anger, and guessed that something bad would happen tonight. Sure enough, Ji Tianqing said in a low voice, "The people of the Changfeng Courtyard must have been idle for too long. They have nothing to do all day long, so they talk about right and wrong. I have only lived here for a day, but there are hundreds of rumors and slanders, filling the whole courtyard. Lai Fu, as the housekeeper of the Changfeng Courtyard, you connived with the people under you to spread rumors and make trouble. How should you be punished? The whole Changfeng Courtyard is in a mess. Wouldn't it damage the reputation of the third prince? Have you ever thought about the consequences? If those maids and guards only talked about him behind his back, he would not be so angry. But those idle people not only criticized him and Zhen Hong, but also involved Wu Shuang. Wasn't that courting death? Ji Tianqing didn't want his daughter to be hurt even a little bit. Even if she was criticized by others, he must immediately stop the rumors and use thunderous means to deter everyone. Therefore, he directly condemned with a fierce tone and a dignified look. The invisible pressure of the divine soul suddenly shrouded the whole hall. Lai Fu, Zhen Hong and the others were all shocked, and a strong fear was born in their hearts. Especially Lai Fu. He quickly bowed and apologized. Young Master Tianqing, please don't be angry. It's this old man's fault for not being able to stop the spread of rumors in time. This old man doesn't want to shirk the responsibility, and I dare not damage the reputation of the Lord. This old man deserves to die 10,000 times. I have betrayed the trust of the Lord and the young master. Please punish me heavily. Ji Tianqing stared at him expressionlessly and said in a deep voice, "How can a punishment deter those idle people? This June will cut the Gordian knot and stop the rumors with blood." Lai Fu's body stiffened, shock flashed across his eyes, and his heart trembled. He subconsciously thought that Ji Tianqing wanted to kill him to establish his authority. Zhen Hong and the three captains also had the same idea. Their complexions changed dramatically. The four of them bowed at the same time and said in a sincere and anxious tone, "Please calm down, young master. Housekeeper Lai Fu can't be blamed for this. We are all responsible. It's because we didn't discipline him well that he ended up like this." Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading, punish them all. This subordinate is willing to share the burden for butler Lai Fu, and accept the punishment together with Uncle Lai Fu. Ji Tianqing glared at the four of them and said coldly, "You guys are quite loyal to your friends. However, all of you are indeed guilty and should be punished together." Zhen Hong and the three captains fell silent. Lai Fu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. At least Ji Tianqing said that they should be punished together, not killed together. Ji Tianqing stared at Sir God Zhen Hong and said in a deep voice, "The rise of the rumors originated from the misunderstanding at noon. Not only the maids and guards in the mansion, but even Lai Fu and the three captains might have misunderstood. So, it's no wonder that the maids and guards believed it without a doubt. Zhen Hong, tell them in person what happened at noon." As soon as he said this, Sir God Zhen Hong froze in place. She opened her mouth in astonishment, and her expression became extremely awkward. Her eyes also became evasive. What happened at noon was too embarrassing, too shameful. After she returned to her residence, she stayed in her room for the whole afternoon. It took her a long time to calm herself down. Now Ji Tianqing actually wanted her to repeat it in front of everyone? How could she say it? It was too embarrassing. For a moment Sir God Zhen Hong was at a loss. Lai Fu and the three captains looked at each other. They looked at Ji Tianqing, then at Zhen Hong and muttered in their hearts. Could it be that something really happened between them? Otherwise, why would Sir God Zhen Hong be so bashful and embarrassed? But that's not right. If something really happened, shouldn't they be hiding it? And they want Sir God Zhen Hong to repeat it in public? How perverted. Thinking of this, the expressions of Lai Fu and the three captains changed again. At this time Ji Tianqing shouted in a dignified tone, "Zhen Hong, the matter is clear and clear. Since you didn't do anything wrong, why can't you say it?" Zhen Hong took a deep breath and finally made up his mind. Then he said, "Sir God Zhen Hong's life was given to me by His Majesty. This kindness must be repaid sooner or later. Unfortunately, Zhen Hong's strength is too low to help His Majesty. The only use and value it had was that it was a rather decent body. Therefore, the government of Zhen Hong has long determined that." Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Yes, I will offer myself at the right time to help Master solve his problems. Today he met young Master Tianqing, who was an honored guest of the Lord. Moreover, the Lord had specially arranged for the young master to stay here. I took it as a sign from the Lord, and decided that the time had come to repay the Lord. Similarly, Uncle Lai Fu also thinks the same, which is why he took the initiative to bring up that matter. Zhen Hong spoke expressionlessly and calmly. He had completely abandoned his sense of shame and guilt, as if he was talking about someone else. Only in this way would she be able to clearly explain the cause and effect of the matter. Lai Fu and the 3 imperial bodyguard captains listened quietly and nodded in agreement. After all, what Zhen Hong said was also what they were thinking. Zhen Hong continued. At noon, the young master ordered Zhen Hong to tidy up the bedroom and said that he wanted to rest later. Zhen Hong's misunderstanding deepened. After helping the young master tidy up the room, I took off my outer clothes, sat at the head of the bed, and waited for the young master. No matter how strong her willpower was, she had already made sufficient preparations. When talking about this matter, she was still blushing with shame. Her whole body was red and boiling, and her voice was trembling and intermittent. Lai Fu and the 3 imperial bodyguard captains were also extremely embarrassed. They wanted to raise their hands to support their foreheads. Ji Tianqing said expressionlessly, "No need to describe the details. Continue to talk about the matter." Zhen Hong breathed a sigh of relief. Her shame and indignation were slightly reduced. She continued, but it turned out that Zhen Hong misunderstood. Not long after, young Master Tianqing came, followed by his entourage. Young Master Tianqing righteously rejected Zhen Hong and told Zhen Hong not to offend him again, or he would be severely punished. Zhen Hong was ashamed. After apologizing, she retreated and went back to her residence to reflect on her mistakes. Zhen Hong finally finished talking about the matter. She let out a long sigh of relief. Lai Fu and the 3 imperial bodyguard captains also endured the awkwardness and listened to the end. A big stone hanging in their hearts finally fell. Fortunately, the thing they expected didn't happen. Everything was a misunderstanding. The news that was spread in the residence was really just rumors and slanders. Ji Tianqing said in a dignified tone, "You already know the course of the matter. The imperial bodyguards and maids in the residence slandered this lord and this lord's daughter. The nature of the matter is very vile. The 5 of you immediately investigate the source of the rumors. After the results are found, kill the rumormongers. Kill at least 5 people. If one is missing, you will make up for it yourselves." Chapter 3006. Ji Tianqing had never been lenient in killing those Protoss. What's more, those Protoss maids and guards had only themselves to blame. But his methods were so ruthless, and his requirements were so harsh. The faces of Lai Fu, Zhen Hong, and the others all changed, and their eyes showed horror. They didn't expect that Ji Tianqing would be so angry and start a massacre just because his daughter was criticized. Didn't he spoil his daughter too much? Although they thought so in their hearts, Lai Fu and the others didn't dare to refute and could only act according to the order. After saying yes, the 5 immediately left the hall to investigate the source of the rumors. Under the strict order, the 5 people were extremely efficient. In just a quarter of an hour, they found the original rumormongers. They selected 5 of the worst among those rumormongers and beheaded them in public in the square. Those 5 people not only created rumors but also spread rumors. They even added oil and vinegar, distorted the facts, and said filthy things. They deserved to be killed. Hundreds of maids and guards gathered in the square and watched the 5 people being killed with their own eyes. All of them were so frightened that their hearts trembled and their souls scattered. After all, they also participated in the rumor and discussion. If they really wanted to investigate, their crimes didn't deserve death. But they couldn't escape punishment. Later, Lai Fu clarified the truth in public and strictly ordered everyone to keep their mouths shut and not make any more rumors. Many maids and guards quickly nodded to show that they understood. Soon this matter was dealt with. The rumors that were spreading in the Changfeng courtyard were finally stopped. It was 6:45 and it was time for dinner. Lai Fu ordered the imperial chef to prepare a table full of dishes and personally sent them to Ji Tianqing's residence. He also wanted to take this opportunity to apologize to Ji Tianqing and ease the atmosphere. Although Ji Tianqing ordered the 5 rumormongers to be killed and didn't punish him, Zhen Hong, and the others. But he knew in his heart that Ji Tianqing was just giving face to the 3rd prince and didn't touch them for the time being. If they did something again next time, Ji Tianqing wouldn't be soft-hearted to kill them. Originally, Ji Tianqing didn't have the habit of eating. He would only occasionally attend banquets on important occasions. He originally wanted to refuse and ask Lai Fu to return the banquet. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading / however, when he thought about it again, Wu Shuang had never been to such an occasion, nor had he tasted the delicacies of the divine realm. Therefore, he brought Wu Shuang and White Dragon to the restaurant for dinner. Dozens of exquisite delicacies were placed on the white jade round table, which had a circumference of 10 feet. Not only did it look, smell, and taste good, but it also shone with divine light and was full of spiritual energy. Wu Shuang was very happy to see this. Not only was she amazed, but she also pulled Ji Tianqing aside and asked him all sorts of questions. She was interested in everything. Ji Tianqing pulled her to sit down and accompanied her to taste each dish. The White Dragon stood at the side and answered Wu Shuang's questions from time to time. Lai Fu also stood obediently, constantly pouring wine for Ji Tianqing. Although Wu Shuang was young, she had inherited her mother's elegance. Even when tasting such a large table of delicacies, she was still very elegant, lively, and cute. Seeing her smile continuously, happy and satisfied, Ji Tianqing's mood became even more cheerful, and more smiles appeared on his face. Seeing this scene, Lai Fu's heart finally fell to the ground. He thought to himself, young Master Tianqing's love for his daughter is really hard to come by. It seems that I've made the right move this time. In the future, if I want to get closer to young Master Tianqing, I just have to do my best to please his daughter. After an hour, dinner was over. The amount of delicacies on the table was not reduced, and many dishes were still the same. Wu Shuang only tasted each dish twice, so of course she could not eat much. But even so, she was still very full, very happy, and very satisfied. Ji Tianqing brought Wu Shuang out of the restaurant and went to the garden to look at the stars, planning to tell her a story. Just as he walked into the garden, he saw that in the clear night sky, there were not only silver stars, but also dense multicolored light spots. Wu Shuang looked up and asked in confusion, "Father, didn't you say that most of the stars are silver and white? Why are there so many colorful ones?" Ji Tianqing observed carefully and realized that the colorful lights floating in the night sky were thousands of exquisite lanterns. He patted Wu Shuang's head and explained with a smile, "Those are not stars, they are all lanterns." "Why are there so many lanterns?" Wu Shuang raised her cute little face, blinked her big clear eyes, and asked, "What festival is it today?" Without waiting for Ji Tianqing to reply, Lai Fu took the initiative to explain. "Young lord, this is the annual Lantern Festival in the capital. And NB friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading SP. It was to commemorate the ancestors who founded the Divine Kingdom, and also to celebrate the completion of the Divine Kingdom. Every year at this time, the Lantern Festival lasted for 2 days. At night, the citizens would walk on the streets and release their own exquisite lanterns. Not only would the city be lively and bustling, there would also be all kinds of delicacies, vendors, and programs, as well as all kinds of lantern competitions. If young lord went to the city to play, you would definitely be able to enjoy countless beautiful sceneries and taste all kinds of delicacies. With young lord's intelligence and wisdom, if you were to participate in the lantern competition or guess the riddles, you would definitely be able to come out on top. Lai Fu explained the origin and content of the Lantern Festival, and then praised Wu Shuang. Although Wu Shuang was clever, she did not take Lai Fu's boasting seriously. But everyone liked to hear praises, so of course she would feel happy. Thus, she became interested in the Lantern Festival in the city and looked forward to it. Even if she did not say anything, Ji Tianqing saw her bright eyes and envious face looking at the sky full of lanterns and guessed her thoughts. "Wu Shuang, father will bring you to the Lantern Festival, okay?" Ji Tianqing pulled Wu Shuang and asked with a smile. Wu Shuang smiled sweetly and quickly nodded, "Okay. Father is the best. Then let's go." Ji Tianqing chuckled and left the garden with Wu Shuang and White Dragon. Lai Fu quickly followed and asked respectfully, "Young lord, if you take young lord to the Lantern Festival, this old servant will send 2 guard captains to follow you. They can protect you and young lord, and you can also have people around you which will save you a lot of trouble." Ji Tianqing thought of the 3 guard captains, frowned and said, "Don't let them come. Just let Zhenhong follow us." How could Lai Fu dare to say no? Of course he nodded and said with a smile, "Okay. This old servant will inform Miss Zhenhong. She is meticulous and will take care of young lord more carefully." After that, he quickly used his divine sense to inform Sir Zhenhong. After a while, when Ji Tianqing and the others walked to the gate of Changfeng Courtyard, Sir Zhenhong also rushed over. She came in front of everyone, bowed to Ji Tianqing, and greeted him in Wushuang. Wushuang nodded with a smile, called Sister Zhenhong, and secretly stared at her to observe. This call of sister made Zhenhong's cheeks a little hot, and her eyes became evasive. She did not dare to look directly at Ji Tianqing and his daughter, but she still liked this smart and cute little girl very much. Chapter 3007. Ji Tianqing and the others took a luxurious carriage and left the long-winded courtyard. The carriage was very spacious, like a small moving palace. Not only was the interior magnificent, comfortable and convenient, but it was also pulled by 8 pure white Pegasus horses. On the cornice of the 4 corners of the carriage, there were also luxurious gemstone lamps hanging, showing the emblem of the royal family. When the people of the royal city saw it, they naturally knew that it was the carriage of the royal family. The people in the carriage should be relatives of the royal family, or noble princes. Naturally, when the carriage drove on the wide street, countless people moved to the sides. After a short quarter of an hour, the carriage drove to Nanfeng Street and stopped. This 100-meter wide street was actually bustling with people, jostling shoulder to shoulder. Looking from the street to the end of the street, it was crowded with people. Countless people walked in groups of 3 or 5, holding beautiful lanterns in their hands, their faces full of smiles. Countless shops on both sides of the street were also decorated with lanterns and colored banners, hanging all kinds of lights. Ji Tianqing and the others got out of the carriage and walked on the street, enjoying the scenery along the way. The coachman was guarding the carriage, waiting on the street. Ji Tianqing walked in front with Wushuang. Zhenhong and Bailong followed behind. Although the street was very crowded, Ji Tianqing exuded an invisible divine power. The pedestrians and people around were blocked by an invisible force, unable to get close to them. In this way, no matter how crowded the street was, they were unimpeded. Wushuang looked at everything around her with curiosity, her delicate little face full of smiles. She often stopped and watched for a moment when she saw something interesting. For example, some clever people made a variety of lanterns in different shapes. They were not the traditional lanterns at all, but were made into figures, kites, and divine beasts. There were also many lanterns made into lifelike divine birds, spreading their wings and flying in the night sky, which were particularly eye-catching. Wushuang was fascinated by it, and while she was amazed, she would also ask Ji Tianqing. The father and daughter held hands and strolled leisurely, which was also very warm. Bailong and Zhenhong looked at their backs, and their minds relaxed and were full of warmth. When they passed by a shop selling lanterns, Wushuang stared at a doll lantern for a long time. That, friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. The doll lantern was very realistic. It was a 3-foot-tall boy. He didn't look childish at all. Instead, he looked exceptionally handsome and cold. There was even a hint of arrogance between his brows. With the support of the arrays and divine power, the flower lantern could fly to very far places. Not long after, the doll lantern flew thousands of feet into the night sky and became one of the lanterns and stars in the sky. Wushuang kept looking up at the doll lantern, her eyes full of hope and expectation. She also prayed silently in her heart, hoping that her brother would be safe and that he could return soon and reunite with his family. After a long time, when the lanterns flew further and further away, they could no longer see them clearly. Only then did they continue shopping. Next, they shopped several streets and bought a few more lanterns and many snacks. Wushuang even participated in a lantern riddles competition and successfully won the championship, winning the applause and amazement of the audience. Unknowingly, 2 hours passed. Ji Tianqing, who had been smiling and in a good mood, suddenly frowned. In his deep eyes a cold murderous intent flashed. Because his divine sense detected that within 1,000 feet radius, there were several groups of people secretly watching them. In fact, from the moment they left the Changfeng court in the carriage, those groups of people had been secretly watching them. They had been watching until now and had not left. The street was bustling with people. Ji Tianqing was playing happily with Wu Shuang and did not seem to notice anything strange. Those groups of people secretly watching them became more and more bold and relaxed, and even came closer. Ji Tianqing did not want to ruin Wu Shuang's mood, and did not want those flies to follow nearby. He quietly released a dozen or so strands of divine power, condensing them into invisible swords, and stabbed at those groups of people. The next moment, those groups of people who were watching them stiffened and stood in place with frightened expressions. 12 masters' divine souls were seriously injured and fell unconscious on the spot, bleeding from their 7 orifices. The remaining masters were also seriously injured. Only then did they realize that they had been exposed and fled into the distance in a panic. White Dragon saw Ji Tianqing's strange look and guessed that something had happened. He asked Master what happened. Ji Tianqing shook his head gently and said, "Nothing, I just drove away a few flies." Chapter 3008. In the North District of the Royal City, there was a group of majestic palaces where high-ranking officials, rich people and influential people lived. In this group of palaces, there was a palace made of black stone and golden tiles called the Holy Flame Palace. This was an ancient palace with a history of thousands of years. Many years ago, the first prince had established his own residence after he came of age. The king was sympathetic and thought highly of him, so he gave the Holy Flame Palace to him as his residence. Now the first prince had passed away many years ago. His successor, Duanmu Crown Prince, became the owner of the Holy Flame Palace. Relying on his father's blessings, Duanmu Crown Prince continued to enjoy wealth and power. The Holy Flame Palace was still the first prince's residence and had not been demoted to a crown prince's residence. Many of the high-ranking officials knew that this was not because the king liked or thought highly of Duanmu Crown Prince. It was because the first prince had sacrificed himself for the king, which made the king feel guilty. No matter what, the king had to take care of the crown prince. He could not let others think that he was unkind. It was late at night, but the Holy Flame Palace was brightly lit and filled with people. Countless guards were patrolling. The first prince was hosting a banquet in the hall to entertain the influential people. The second prince, Duanmu Xiong, did not attend the banquet. He was sitting in a secret underground room, thinking about something with a cold expression. The dim light in the corner shone on half of his face. One could vaguely see that his expression was cold and his eyes were malicious. Since Duanmu Xiong left Tianxue County and returned to the royal city, everyone felt that he had changed. Especially those in the first prince's residence, they were all surprised and confused. In the past, the second prince was elegant and cheerful. He often went out and showed himself in public. Especially during the Lantern Festival, he would definitely go out and have fun. He would even participate in a few lantern and lantern riddles competitions, and win a few places in the top 3. He was elegant and elegant. But in the past month, the second prince had been living in seclusion. He claimed to be cultivating in seclusion. The few times he showed up, his aura was malicious and cold, which made people feel intimidated. Outsiders did not know the reason. However, the second prince and his trusted aide were well aware of the situation. It was all because of that bastard Tianqing. Duanmu Xiong would never forget the pain and humiliation he had suffered that night in the Maple Woods Manor. Body readers, please rest your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. He was poisoned, his internal organs and meridians were damaged, and the tools to carry on his ancestral line were destroyed. He even had his face stepped on by Ji Tianqing, forcing him to lower his head and apologize. Most importantly, the poison was still in his body and could erupt at any time. This was a nightmare that Duanmu Xiong could never forget for the rest of his life. For more than a month, he didn't dare to sleep for even a moment. As long as he closed his eyes, the scene of that night would appear in his mind. He was suffering great pain and suffering, and his mind was on the verge of collapse. During this period of time, he had used all his resources to find the palace's imperial physicians, secular doctors, and several divine doctors. Even high divine lord realm powerhouses he also found quite a few. However, just as Ji Tianqing had said, no one could cure the poison in his body. Only 2 miracle doctors could help him regrow his roots and temporarily relieve his pain. This was already the limit. Duanmuxiong was about to go crazy. There were many times when he was on the verge of breaking down and wanted to give up. He wanted to die together with Ji Tianqing. He would rather die together with Ji Tianqing than be tortured again. Swoosh! Suddenly, a black shadow flew into the secret room and arrived in front of Duanmuxiong. The black shadow was wearing a large black robe and a bronze mask, so his face couldn't be seen. However, from his body shape, he was a lean and capable middle-aged man. The black shadow reported in a deep voice, reporting to the crown prince, the people who were watching tonight were discovered and were all injured by Tianqing. They have already retreated. Duanmuxiong's expression didn't change. He looked coldly at the black shadow and asked, "He has already been in the capital for a day. What's the result of the investigation?" The black shadow replied, reporting to the crown prince, since he entered the capital, more than a dozen of our small teams have been watching him. After a day of investigation, we have gained a lot of important information. Duanmuxiong raised his eyebrows and his eyes brightened. "Speak," the black shadow reported. He was taken away by the third prince's men as soon as he entered the city and settled in the Longwind Court. The leader of the maids in the Longwind Court is Divine Lord Zhenhong. He seems to be interested in Zhenhong and asked her to serve him at noon. The news spread in the Changfeng courtyard, and everyone knew about it. After Zhenhong went to bed, he swaggered around the city with his daughter and played for a few hours in Changfeng courtyard. At night, he suppressed the rumors and slanders and killed 5 maids and guards. The black shadow concisely described what happened in the Changfeng courtyard. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. You have to report it to me. After Duanmuxiong heard this, he furrowed his brows, and his eyes flickered with hatred. Damn beast. He just got in touch with Prince Yu Sanjing and moved into Changfeng courtyard. And he slept with Zhenhong? Duanmuxiong had a close relationship with the third prince and the princess consort. He had been to Changfeng courtyard many times, so of course he knew the immortal Zhenhong. Moreover, he was also attracted by Zhenhong's special temperament, and wanted to get his hands on him. But the third prince seemed to value Zhenhong very much, and he seemed to have other uses for it. Duanmuxiong didn't dare to act rashly, so he could only endure and wait for an opportunity. But he didn't expect that the fruit he was looking for would be picked by Ji Tianqing. The most hateful thing is that the beast has a daughter. He already has a family, so why did he fight with me for Ning Xiyuan and Zhenhong? He is a despicable, hypocritical, heinous, and bastard. Duanmuxiong clenched his fists, and the veins on his forehead bulged. He cursed with a ferocious face. The black shadow remained silent. After Duanmuxiong calmed down a little, he persuaded, maybe it's just a rumor. After all, he suppressed the rumors and killed 5 guards and maids. Duanmuxiong sneered, what about tonight? He went to the Lantern Festival. Who followed him? The black shadow answered truthfully, the immortal Zhenhong. Haha. Duanmuxiong sneered even more disdainfully. First he killed people to suppress the rumors, then he took his new wife to go shopping. I have never seen such a shameless person. The black shadow remained silent and didn't say much. Duanmuxiong gradually calmed down and thought for a moment. He said in a low voice, he chased me from Tianxua County to the Imperial City, and has been suppressing and humiliating me. If I don't get rid of him, I will never have a day of peace. Today he just arrived at the Imperial City, and he took Zhenhong by force. He even deliberately showed off in public just to disgust me. If I don't get rid of him as soon as possible, I don't know what he will do again. After that, he ordered the Black Shadow, go and tell Purple Fiend Star that I am willing to pay 30 billion for Tianqing's life. The Black Shadow's body shook, and he persuaded, Prince, 30 billion will empty the Imperial City's savings. The eldest prince will definitely be furious. Huh? Duanmuxiong sneered. So what if I go bankrupt? When has my big brother ever cared about my life? I have had enough. Even if I have to die together with that beast, I won't hesitate. Chapter 3009. Duanmuxiong's attitude was firm and resolute. The Black Shadow hesitated for a while before he tried to persuade Duan Muxiong again. Your Highness, please think twice. The evil blood palace has failed twice and lost several generals. They definitely won't accept this task again. Duan Muxiong said in a low voice, 30 billion is the highest price in the past 1,000 years. The evil blood palace will consider it. The Black Shadow was silent for a while. He could not persuade Duan Muxiong, so he bowed and said, Yes, Your Highness. Then the Black Shadow merged into the darkness and disappeared. In the southern district of Yunwu City, the splendid mansion of the second prince was located at the end of the Vermilion Bird Avenue. The mansion covered an area of nearly 10 square miles. It not only had a spacious yard and a garden, but also numerous exquisite houses and palaces. Tonight was the Lantern Festival. The mansion was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. Everywhere was jubilant and full of people. Not only the family members of the mansion were having fun, but many guards, maids, and servants were also roaming in the garden at night. However, in the study of the second prince deep in the palace, the atmosphere was different. Different from the jubilation outside. The study was heavily guarded and the atmosphere was quite solemn and austere. 4 of the prince's advisors with different appearances were standing respectfully in the study, helping the second prince come up with a plan. 5 divine emperors in armor also stood solemnly and listened to the second prince's orders. These Sir Gods were all important figures who held great authority in their hands. They were either trusted aides of the second prince, generals with outstanding military exploits, or governors and top nobles. Sitting behind the desk was a middle-aged man in a golden robe with a golden crown on his head. He was the second prince. He was tall and sturdy with a dignified appearance. His bell-sized eyes were shining brightly and exuded awe-inspiring majesty. He had a goatee on his chin, which was neatly combed. His temples were white, but his thick eyebrows were slanted to his temples. This second prince was clearly a man of great talent and bold vision. Just a moment ago, the second prince had finished discussing some important matters with his aides and confidants. After he made his decision and gave the order, the armored confidants all saluted to show that they had obeyed the order. The second prince waved his hand, indicating for everyone to leave. The confidants hurriedly saluted and left the study one after another. Only the second prince and his 4 advisors were left in the study, and they soon quieted down. For many years, the second prince had been eager to recruit talents and had recruited many capable people. There were more than 1,000 diners in the prince's mansion. Among the nearly 1,000 people with special abilities, more than 40 of them were exceptionally talented and were hired by the second prince as his aides. Normally, these aides would rack their brains to help him plan and deal with all kinds of affairs. The 4 aides in the study were the elites and leaders of the group of aides, especially the white-haired old man in the lead. He wore the attire of an immortal and learned scholar, and he held a silver horsetail whisk with both hands, causing him to seem extremely unfathomable. This person was the chief advisor, Yanlong Celestial Lord. The second prince leaned back in his large chair and closed his eyes to rest. His hands were rubbing the space between his eyebrows. He seemed to have a lot on his mind. Lord Yanlong bowed slightly and calmly reported, Master. It has been an entire day since Tianqing entered the capital. Many things have happened in this day. First, he was taken to the Longwind courtyard by the third prince's people for a temporary stay. Lord Yanlong reported to the second prince all the information that his spies and scouts had brought back to him. The second prince closed his eyes and listened quietly. No one could see any change in his expression. After a while, Lord Yanlong finished reporting everything that had happened in the day. Only then did the second prince open his eyes, and the corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. He seemed to be talking to himself. Tianqing just moved into the Longwind courtyard, and he let the captain of the maidservants serve him in bed? Haha, that kid is vicious, but he is not a shallow person. This must be the third prince's honey trap. He wants to completely trap that kid and tie him to his chariot. Lord Yanlong nodded in agreement and said with a smile, Master is wise. Judging from Tianqing's previous behavior, he is not the kind of person who is attached to women. The incident of serving him in bed was most likely the third prince's honey trap. But Tianqing then let his daughter appear and took her to stroll around the long-winded courtyard for several hours. At night, they suppressed the rumors and slanders and executed a few guards and maids. These two things are signals. Tianqing strongly and clearly expressed his position. Obviously, he is not willing to accept the third prince's honey trap, nor does he want to be the third prince's vanguard general. The second prince listened with a smile and showed a satisfied expression. Then tell me, what is the situation between Tianqing and the third prince? Lord Yanlong thought for a while and said in a serious tone, they are neither friendly nor distant. On the surface they seem to be allies, grasshoppers tied to a string. But in fact, Tianqing and the third prince are not of one mind. Another hunchbacked aide added, judging from Tianqing's past behavior, he is very arrogant and will not submit to anyone. Even when facing the third prince, he only treats him as a friend, not as his master. Another middle-aged aide in a purple robe said with a serious expression, Tianqing is an extremely cunning person. He has long understood the situation in the capital. Even if he is very close to the third prince, he will not truly rely on the third prince. He knows better than us that only by waiting for the right price can he seize the greatest benefits. Once he is eager to pledge loyalty to the third prince, his value will be greatly reduced. Several aides spoke one after another, expressing their views on Tianqing. After they finished, the second prince nodded and said in a serious tone, that's right. Your analysis is correct and comprehensive. Tianqing and the third prince's state shows that they are not completely united. We still have a chance. A chance? Lord Yanlong frowned in confusion and asked, my lord, what do you mean? The second prince's lips curled into a cold smile. Even though Tianqing and I have a deep grudge against each other, he only killed my men and stole my belongings. There is no direct enmity between him and this king. At this critical moment, I am magnanimous and will not pursue him for the time being. In addition, I have been fighting openly and covertly with the third prince for so many years and have been able to maintain a balance without any results. Now the fifth prince has appeared out of nowhere and is about to be crowned crown prince. At this time, we should set aside our prejudices and grudges and work together with the third prince to deal with the fifth prince. If I were to discuss cooperation with the third prince, he would definitely refuse. Tianqing has come at the right time. We will try to rope him in and use him as a bridge. I believe the third prince will agree. The aides thought for a moment and showed expressions of agreement. Lord Yanlong also smiled. That's right. As long as we can convince Tianqing, we can force the third prince to agree to the cooperation. This subordinate is willing to step forward and help the lord with his troubles. Chapter 30:10. Yanlong wanted to share the burden and solve the problem. In fact, he was the one who invited Tianqing on behalf of the second prince. The second prince nodded without hesitation. All right, I'll leave this matter to Yanlong. After a short pause, he continued, let's set the meeting place at Chongyang Villa in the western suburbs. There are many people in the city, and Tianqing is being watched by all forces. He must be on guard. He'll be relieved to meet me outside the city. Yanlong bowed and said, yes, your highness. I'll do it right away. After that, Lord Yanlong bowed and left the study. The three aides stayed and were about to report other things to the second prince. Just then, a beam of spiritual light flew from the night sky and landed in front of the second prince. When the spiritual light dissipated, a message jade slip appeared. There was a special purple symbol on the slip. The second prince knew it was a secret message from Zixia Xing was the vice palace master of the evil blood palace. Usually, Palace Master Xue Xing cultivated in seclusion and rarely showed up. He was one of the most mysterious experts in the entire Bloodfire Divine country. Zixia Xing was basically in charge of the affairs of the evil blood palace. But many people knew that the evil blood palace had taken refuge with the second prince. Therefore, Zixia Xing had to ask the second prince for help when he encountered a difficult decision. The second prince picked up the slip and read it with his divine sense. After a while, he threw the slip on the table and sneered. That idiot Duan Muxiong can't sit still anymore. Tianqing has only been in the capital for a day, and he's already lost his mind. He's willing to spend 30 billion god stones to ask the evil blood palace to kill Tianqing. The three aides showed complicated expressions when they heard the news. The hunchbacked aide bowed slightly and said, "My lord, our main task now is to prevent the fifth prince from becoming the crown prince. To deal with the fifth prince, we have to win over Tianqing and cooperate with the third prince. Therefore, Tianqing is still useful for the time being. We can't kill him." The purple-robed aide also nodded in agreement and said in a disdainful tone, "Second prince is young and full of vigor, but he is not good at scheming and scheming. It will be difficult for him to achieve great things. I heard that he was interested in the captain of the maid team in Changfeng courtyard. He must have heard about what happened today, which was why he was so angry. A mere captain of the maidservants is enough to make him lose his composure." Sigh. Another advisor said thoughtfully, "With the first prince's financial situation, it would be very difficult for him to take out 30 billion divine stones. Unless the second prince wanted to empty the first prince's treasury. By doing this, he's basically fighting with his back to the river. He's not leaving any leeway." The three aides had said everything that needed to be said, and the second prince did not say anything else. He picked up the jade slip and said in a dignified tone, "Purple Malefic, reply to that idiot Duan Muxiong. Tell him that he wants to buy Tianqing's life with 30 billion? That's too naive of him. If he was really sincere, then he would add another bargaining chip. Angry Blood Sacred Tree. Unless he takes out 30 billion and the Furious Blood Sacred Tree, this king will agree." After saying that, the second prince waved his hand and sent the jade slip out. When the three aides heard the words Angry Blood Sacred Tree, their bodies shook and revealed a look of deep shock, because the three of them knew the origin of the Angry Blood Sacred Tree, as well as its powerful effects and precious value. Many years ago, the first prince sacrificed himself for the king, which shocked the entire Blood Flame Divine Kingdom. At that time, the entire capital was covered in mourning, and countless people and courtiers were crying and wailing. The king also blamed himself and was very sad about the first prince's sacrifice. Therefore, the king gave the first prince a lot of posthumous titles. He also did his best to reward and comfort the first prince's widow and two sons. There was no need to say much about the various hereditary titles and treasures. But the most shocking thing was that the king actually bestowed the Angry Blood Sacred Tree to the first prince's residence. As everyone knew, the Blood Flame Sacred Tree was the #1 treasure of the Divine Kingdom. As for the Angry Blood Sacred Tree, it was a small tree that grew from the roots of the Blood Flame Sacred Tree. Although the value and effect of this item was not as good as the Blood Flame Sacred Tree, it was still a divine king. However, it was also a supreme-grade monarch-level divine object. Its effect was very similar to the Bloody Flame Divine Tree. It was equivalent to a weakened version. With the Angry Blood Sacred Tree, one could activate their bloodline to the greatest extent, strengthen their talent, and assist in cultivating the royal family's inherited mental cultivation techniques. It was not an exaggeration to say that with the Angry Blood Sacred Tree, one's strength would increase by at least 5 times. Back then, the king had bestowed the Angry Blood Sacred Tree to the first prince's residence to compensate the two princes. Who would have thought that the two princes were people with mediocre talent? Unlike the first prince, who was extremely talented, they had used the Angry Blood Sacred Tree to cultivate for many years, and used up a huge amount of cultivation resources. In the end, the first prince was only a third-level divine monarch, and the second prince was only a second-level divine monarch. It was also fortunate that they had the help of the Angry Blood Sacred Tree, and the countless resources and elixirs bestowed by the king. Otherwise, with Duan Muxiong's dull talent, he could not even reach the second-level divine monarch. The second prince, third prince, fourth princess, and fifth prince all coveted the Angry Blood Sacred Tree. However, the king had bestowed that treasure to the first prince's residence. Even if they wanted it, they could only suppress their thoughts and not scheme to snatch it. Unless they had a way to make the two princes willingly give the Angry Blood Sacred Tree to someone else. Therefore, the second prince would often think of ways to cheat the first prince's residence of the Angry Blood Sacred Tree. Although Duan Muxiong was dull, he was not too stupid. He also knew that the Angry Blood Sacred Tree was bestowed by the king, and represented his father's blessings. That was the first prince's residence's heirloom and must not be lost. In the past, no matter how the second prince tried to beat around the bush and scheme, Duan Muxiong would always be able to resist. Duan Muxiong had been able to hold himself back from the start to the end, resolutely refusing to take out the raging blood divine tree. As for this time, the second prince was just following the usual practice and mentioned it again. He did not have much hope. The reason why he wanted the angry blood sacred tree was more to make Duan Muxiong retreat. After all, Tianqing could not be killed now. The three aides also understood the second prince's thoughts and did not say anything. Soon, the second prince put this matter aside and discussed other matters with the three aides. In the wee hours of the morning, the bustling royal capital gradually calmed down. The tourists and commoners on the streets gradually returned to their residences and homes. The streets and alleys also regained their tranquility and desolation. Ji Tianqing brought Wushuang, White Dragon, and Zhen hung around the city for a few hours. Wushuang had a great time and enjoyed himself to the fullest. Late at night, Ji Tianqing brought the three back to South Wind Street. The carriage had been waiting there, and the coachman stood there respectfully. Everyone boarded the carriage and returned to Long Wind Courtyard. 15 minutes later, the carriage arrived at the gate of Long Wind Courtyard and stopped. Ji Tianqing and the others had just alighted from the carriage when they saw an equally luxurious carriage parked beside the bronze lion at the gate. A white-haired old man wearing a white robe and holding a horsetail whisk walked down from the carriage with a smile on his face towards Ji Tianqing. Chapter 30:11. This white-haired old man was the second prince's chief of staff, Emperor Yanlong. He walked to Ji Tianqing with a horsetail whisk and bowed with a smile. "Greetings, young Master Tianhang. I am Yanlong." Ji Tianqing and the others stopped and looked at Celestial Lord Yanlong. "Yanlong?" Ji Tianqing frowned and asked, "The second prince's chief of staff?" He had investigated the second prince's background. Therefore, he knew about Emperor Yanlong. He also knew that this person's strength was a 7th-degree realm high god monarch. "That's me." Celestial Lord Yanlong bowed and replied with a smile. Ji Tianqing asked calmly, "Lord Yanlong, are you here on behalf of the second prince to send me a message? Or are you inviting me to be your guest?" Celestial Lord Yanlong showed a look of admiration and said, "I've long heard that Mr.'s wisdom is unparalleled. Now that I've seen it with my own eyes, I'm truly impressed. You are right. I am here on behalf of the Lord to invite you to Qingyang Villa in the southern suburbs." Ji Tianqing had known for a long time that the second prince was good at scheming. He was a ruthless and cunning person. Even though he had a feud with the second prince, they were like fire and water. But at the critical moment, the second prince would definitely make compromises after weighing the pros and cons. Especially this time when the king wanted to make the fifth prince the crown prince. The second prince and the third prince were caught off guard and would definitely work together to stop the fifth prince. They had been fighting openly and secretly for many years and had a deep grudge against each other. Even if they wanted to work together, they couldn't do it face to face. They needed a bridge. Ji Tianqing knew that he was the best candidate. Therefore, before he entered the imperial city, he knew that the second prince would try to rope him in. As expected, God Lord Yanlong came tonight. Southern suburbs? Qingyang Villa? Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said with a playful smile, "The second prince chose a villa outside the city? I am afraid this is not a good banquet." Celestial Lord Yanlong looked solemn and quickly explained, "You've misunderstood. My lord is thirsty for talents and has long noticed young master's talent. He wants to make friends with you. Now that the young master has come to the capital city as the host, the master must take advantage of this opportunity to entertain you with a banquet. Don't worry, young master. Master is inviting you to be a guest with great sincerity. He definitely has no ill intentions." Ji Tianqing thought for a moment, then nodded and said, "All right, wait here for a moment." Seeing that he had agreed to attend the banquet, Lord Yanlong was secretly relieved. He quickly bowed and said, "I will be waiting for you here." Ji Tianqing turned to look at Wushuang and said gently, "Wushuang, father has to go out of the city and can't accompany you. You must be tired tonight. Go back to Changfeng Courtyard and have a rest." Ji Wushuang also understood that it was inconvenient for her father to take care of important matters outside the city. Therefore, she nodded obediently and said, "Father, people's hearts are sinister and the environment is complicated. You have to be careful." Ji Tianqing touched her head and said with a smile, "Well, Father will be fine. Rest assured, Father will be back soon." After that, he looked at Zhenhong and said, "Zhenhong, accompany Wushuang back to the residence to rest. You have to guard her at all times. There must be no accidents." Zhenhong nodded without hesitation and said solemnly, "Rest assured, young master. Changfeng Courtyard is heavily guarded. There will be no accidents." Ji Tianqing did not say anything more and waved them away. He watched Zhenhong and Wushuang enter Changfeng Courtyard, then walked to Celestial Lord Yanlong with the White Dragon. Celestial Lord Yanlong bowed and made a gesture of invitation. Ji Tianqing and the White Dragon boarded the gorgeous carriage, followed by Celestial Lord Yanlong. After the three of them entered the carriage and sat down, the coachman drove the four mythical beasts and left Changfeng Courtyard. This luxurious and reserved carriage sped through the night and soon arrived at the West City Gate. After leaving the capital, the carriage flew into the night sky and went straight to the western suburbs. Chungyang Courtyard was one of the properties under the second prince's name. This beautiful, secluded, and elegant residence was located on Mount Chungyang, 9,000 miles away from the imperial capital. The courtyard covered an area of thousands of acres. It was beautifully and elegantly built. It had a simple and elegant temperament. Usually, the second prince rarely came here. He would only come here to entertain important guests, or to secretly discuss important matters, or to meet someone. The courtyard was covered by a powerful divine formation and was guarded by hundreds of guards. The degree of security was no less than the Changfeng Courtyard of the third prince. Just a quarter of an hour later, the carriage arrived at the gate of Chungyang Courtyard. Celestial Lord Yanlong took Ji Tianqing and the White Dragon into Chungyang Courtyard. The three of them passed through two courtyards and a garden. They arrived at the third courtyard and walked toward the splendid guest hall. Along the way, Ji Tianqing and the White Dragon secretly observed the layout of the courtyard and the distribution of the defenses. Bai Long quietly reminded Ji Tianqing through telepathy, "Master, this courtyard is heavily guarded, and there are divine formations everywhere. If the second prince has evil intentions, I'm afraid we will be in danger. It will be very troublesome." Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said, "The second prince is not stupid. He is not an impulsive person. He knows better than anyone that he can't do anything to me at this juncture. Moreover, I have already checked. There are no large numbers of experts in the courtyard. It should be safe." The White Dragon felt relieved after hearing this. Soon, the three of them stepped into the guest hall. As soon as they entered the brightly lit hall, Ji Tianqing saw a large table in the middle of the hall. It was filled with delicious food and wine. More than a dozen young and beautiful maids were standing respectfully in attendance. The second prince, who was wearing a golden robe, was sitting on the main seat and waiting patiently. Celestial Lord Yanlong walked toward the second prince and reported, "Master, young Master Tianqing is here." The second prince immediately stood up and looked at Ji Tianqing with a smile. He cupped his hands and bowed. "I have heard of young Master Tianqing's name and deeds. I admire you. To be honest, I have been friends with you for a long time. To be able to invite young master here as a guest tonight, this prince is truly fortunate." The second prince laughed heartily and walked toward Ji Tianqing with open arms. He wanted to give him a warm hug. His forthrightness and enthusiasm were a bit too much. Ji Tianqing frowned but did not show it on his face. He was 10 steps away from the second prince. He cupped his hands and bowed, "Greetings, Your Highness. It is my honor to be invited by the second prince." He politely refused the second prince's hug and enthusiasm. The second prince knew what was going on. Disappointment flashed in his eyes, but he did not show any embarrassment on his face. He retracted his arms without leaving a trace and pulled Ji Tianqing's sleeves instead, inviting him to take a seat in the guest seat. "Good wine and food have been prepared. Young master, please take a seat. Let's drink a few cups." As he spoke, the second prince picked up the wine pot and personally poured wine for Ji Tianqing. Chapter 30:12. The second prince held Ji Tianqing's hand and drank to his heart's content. 12 young and beautiful maids were waiting on the two of them respectfully. There were also a few musicians playing beautiful music, and a dozen or so enchanting dancers dancing gracefully in the hall. The second prince had put a lot of effort into this banquet to entertain Ji Tianqing. On the surface, he and Ji Tianqing seemed to be enjoying themselves. But the second prince's excessive enthusiasm made Ji Tianqing and the white dragon wary. Bai Long had been standing behind Ji Tianqing, acting as his bodyguard. Just like Lord Yanlong, he stood behind the second prince. But the difference was that the white dragon was expressionless and silent. Lord Yanlong smiled and occasionally added a few words to liven up the atmosphere, flattering and winning over Ji Tianqing on behalf of the second prince. The banquet lasted for almost 2 hours. During this time, the second prince was quite enthusiastic about Ji Tianqing, as if he regretted not having met him sooner. At the same time, he also hinted at his intentions. He wanted to drive a wedge between Ji Tianqing and the third prince. He offered more attractive terms to win over Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing rejected him without any hesitation. The second prince did not feel awkward. After easing the atmosphere, he continued to win over Ji Tianqing. After all, the second prince was prepared that Ji Tianqing would not be loyal to him. He was just testing him and did not have much hope. His main purpose was to cooperate with Ji Tianqing and force the third prince to work with him through Ji Tianqing. However, after the second prince expressed his intention, Ji Tianqing was still indifferent. There was neither a promise nor a clear rejection. He just said that he did not care about the affairs of the divine nation, and did not want to get involved in the feuds and struggles of the royal family. Moreover, he only wanted freedom and peace. He could only represent his own position and could not make decisions for the third prince. After the second prince understood his position, he became more disappointed. 2 hours later, the banquet ended. What the second prince wanted to say, and what he wanted to express had been expressed clearly and completely. Ji Tianqing also gave a corresponding answer. He wasn't loyal to anyone, nor did he have any ambitions, so he didn't need to work with anyone. On the surface, both parties were still enjoying themselves. But the secret confrontation was over, and the result was not satisfactory to the second prince. The atmosphere between them was somewhat cold, and they parted on bad terms. Ji Tianqing stood up and said goodbye without changing his expression. He thanked the second prince for his hospitality. The second prince got up to see him off and warmly urged Ji Tianqing to stay. He also invited him to visit the prince's mansion next time. Ji Tianqing clearly refused. This caused the second prince to feel even more disappointed, and a faint trace of anger appeared in his heart. But he didn't show it. He asked Yanlong to send Ji Tianqing away. Lord Yanlong sent Ji Tianqing and the white dragon to the gate of the courtyard. After both parties bid farewell to each other, Ji Tianqing and the white dragon took to the night sky and flew towards the western gate of the royal capital. Yanlong watched as the two figures disappeared into the darkness. He quickly turned around and entered the courtyard. On the way back to the royal capital, the white dragon sent a message to Ji Tianqing. Master, the king wants to make the fifth prince the crown prince. The second prince is obviously anxious. He wants to work with the third prince to deal with the fifth prince through you. But you rejected him. Don't you think he would fly into a rage out of humiliation and deal with you? Ji Tianqing's expression was calm as he said with certainty, of course not. His biggest wish and goal is to become the crown prince. Now he is busy dealing with the fifth prince. How can he spare the energy to deal with me? Just as he finished this sentence, in the night sky 10 miles ahead, a few dazzling blood-red sword lights suddenly lit up and attacked like lightning. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. There were a total of 9 blood-red sword lights. 7 of them attacked Ji Tianqing, and only 2 pierced the white dragon. The sword lights were extremely sharp and contained a violent killing sword essence. Ji Tianqing immediately frowned. He raised his hand as fast as lightning, and the sword lights filled the sky. Bang bang bang. Dozens of dazzling golden sword lights collided with the blood-red sword lights, and there was a loud dull sound. The 9 blood-red sword lights were all blocked and shattered. The white dragon frowned and sneered, damn! We just left the Chongyang courtyard and walked 3,000 miles before we were ambushed. If this is not the second prince, who else can it be? Ji Tianqing's face was cold as well. He said coldly, if this is really his doing, then I have overestimated him. As his voice fell, a figure appeared in the night sky ahead. It was a burly old man in a purple robe and a bronze mask. His purple hair fluttered in the wind, and he exuded a domineering aura. Although Ji Tianqing could not see the person's face, he could sense that the purple-robed old man was a high-level divine lord, and his strength had surpassed the 7th degree. At this moment, two figures appeared in the night sky on both sides. The figure on the left was a skinny divine clan member in a black robe, and he wore a skull mask. The one on the right was a man as strong as an iron tower. He wore dark golden armor and held two large sabers. These two were also high-level divine lords, and they both had the strength of the 7th degree. A total of 3 divine lords surrounded Ji Tianqing and the White Dragon, and they were filled with a strong murderous aura. The White Dragon looked around and sneered. This place is less than 3,000 miles from the royal city. How dare you set up an ambush here? How audacious! Tell me, who is the master behind you? Is it the second prince? The divine lords on both sides did not speak. The purple-robed old man, who was the strongest, said in a hoarse voice, people who are bound to die do not need to know the truth. This answer seemed to agree with the White Dragon's words. The White Dragon was about to ask when the purple-robed old man had already attacked. He waved a blood-red sword and slashed out sword lights. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Hundreds of violent and sharp sword lights sealed off the area, drowning Ji Tianqing and the White Dragon's figures. The White Dragon only had the strength of the celestial god realm, and had not reached the divine lord realm. He absolutely could not withstand the attack of a high-level divine lord. Once he was hit by the sword lights, he would definitely be smashed into pieces. In fact, even his godhood was on the verge of collapse. Under the crisis, Ji Tianqing immediately took out the Burial of Heaven sword and executed a counterattack. He struck out the dragon elephant divine fist with his left hand, and his right hand brandished sword lights that covered the sky, blocking the purple-robed old man's attack. Bam 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 bam. The sword lights that filled the sky collided and exploded with a deafening sound. Hundreds of sword lights and phantoms of dragons and elephants all collapsed into fragments that filled the sky, and a shocking hurricane blew up. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the divine lords on both sides also attacked. The two of them executed their ultimate skills, slashing out countless sword lights and thousands of blood waves and hundreds of beast phantoms. Ji Tianqing was exhausted from blocking. In a moment of carelessness, he failed to protect the White Dragon. A blood-red sword light took advantage of the situation and slashed the White Dragon. Bam! With a muffled explosion, his entire right arm was cut off, and blood splattered. The White Dragon let out a painful groan, and his face instantly turned pale. Ji Tianqing hurriedly opened the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes pagoda, and kept the White Dragon inside, letting him circulate his energy to heal his injuries. Chapter 30:13. Bai Long could not take part in the battle between the upper-level Sir Gods. After he entered the God Pagoda, Ji Tianqing felt more at ease. Even though he was facing off against 3 Sir God experts alone, and was surrounded from beginning to end, he did not need to worry about Bai Long's safety and divert his attention to protect him. In this way, he could unleash a stronger battle power and temporarily block off the attacks of the 3 Sir Gods. The 3 Sir Gods were also determined to kill. They wanted to end the battle as soon as possible, because they knew that this place was not far from Sun-Bearing Courtyard and Royal City. If they could not kill Ji Tianqing in half an hour, many experts would be alerted to investigate the situation. By then, it would be difficult for them to kill Ji Tianqing. Therefore, the 3 Sir Gods did not say a word and attacked with all their might. They originally thought that there would be 2 7th-degree realm god monarchs and an 8th-degree realm god monarch. Killing Ji Tianqing would be a piece of cake. But the 3 of them did not expect Ji Tianqing to be so tenacious, and use all kinds of ultimate skills to block off their attacks. Even though Ji Tianqing had been injured after exchanging 30 moves, Ji Tianqing had been injured. As time passed, the 3 Sir Gods became more anxious and their attacks became more ferocious. They did not hesitate to get injured so that they could kill Ji Tianqing as soon as possible. Even so, Ji Tianqing still held on until the end. He used Heavenly Dragon Tyrant Body and turned into 100 feet tall golden armored god of war. His battle power increased by 6 times. The fierce attacks of the two 7th degree Sir Gods were blocked by his sword Dao divine ability. As for the 8th degree realm purple-robed elderly's ultimate skill, he used various secret skills to neutralize more than half of its power. Even if he was hit by the purple-robed elderly, he only suffered some light injuries. Soon 100 breaths time passed. Both parties had already exchanged more than 200 moves, and the aftermath of the battle destroyed the surrounding 500 miles of mountain range. The surroundings turned into ruins and the heaven and earth was filled with thick smoke and dust. Dull loud sounds reverberated in the night sky and dazzling divine light kept flashing. Ji Tianqing, who was 100 feet tall and was covered in golden light, also suffered more than 10 injuries. To the 3 Sir Gods, this progress was simply too slow. It would take at least 2 hours to kill Ji Tianqing. This progress was simply too slow. Thus, the 2 7th-level Divine Lords continued their fierce attacks, restraining Ji Tianqing and not allowing him to escape. The purple-robed old man began to accumulate power. He did not hesitate to burn all of his qi and blood, forcibly increasing his battle prowess by 2 times. 10 breaths later, the accumulation of power was complete. The qi and blood in his body ignited, and his whole body flashed with a bloody light. His aura also became extremely violent. Heavenly Frenzy Extermination Sword. The purple-robed elder held the sword with both hands, and like a blood-red whirlpool, he madly devoured the divine power within a radius of tens of thousands of miles. His battle intent and aura rose crazily, reaching an extremely terrifying level. When his aura reached its peak, he held the divine sword with both hands and slashed at Ji Tianqing with all his might. This sword was the pinnacle of his skills. Its might was extremely powerful, and it gathered the divine power of heaven and earth for tens of thousands of miles, ruthlessly suppressing Ji Tianqing. Everything within a radius of 150 miles was locked down, making it impossible for Ji Tianqing to escape or dodge. Once this sword was unleashed, it was like a bolt of lightning cutting through the night sky, illuminating a radius of thousands of miles. Ji Tianqing felt immense pressure, and even the chill of death. The purple-robed elder's killer move was enough to threaten his life. At this critical moment, he could only ignore the 2 Sir Gods beside him and take their attacks head-on. He had to use all his strength to resolve the purple-robed elder's killer move. Daylight Sword. Ji Tianqing roared angrily, holding the burial of heaven with both hands, his expression extremely solemn. His movements seemed to be slow as he stabbed at the purple-robed elder. Suddenly, endless divine power surged out of his body, and after being amplified by the burial of heaven, it formed a circle of dazzling golden divine light. That huge dazzling golden halo was like a scorching sun, carrying an extremely heavy and majestic power, as it ruthlessly blasted at the Heavenly Frenzy Extermination Sword. This sword was also Ji Tianqing's pinnacle killer move. It was a move that he had unleashed 120% of his power and was fully focused on. Boom! Crack! At the next moment, the Daylight Sword and the Heavenly Frenzy Extermination Sword clashed fiercely, giving off a deafening sound. The blood-red giant sword, which was thousands of feet long, slashed the golden halo ruthlessly. The 2 of them were in a stalemate in the night sky. Their powers suddenly exploded and quickly cancelled each other out. Merely 2 breaths later, the blood-red giant sword and the golden halo collapsed at the same time, turning into millions of fragments, scattering in the night sky. Destructive shockwaves spread out in all directions, covering a radius of several thousand miles. The surrounding mountains and forests within 1,000 miles were shattered by the shockwave, turning into desolated ruins. The purple-robed elder was safe and sound, but he was pushed back 100 steps. Ji Tianqing, on the other hand, was so shaken that he staggered and fell from the night sky into the ruins, smashing a deep hole in the ruins. After all, not only was he injured by the power of the Heavenly Frenzy Extermination Sword, he was also hit by the 2 Sir Gods' divine skills. There were a few more wounds on his back and shoulders, and golden blood splattered out. As for the 2 7th-degree Sir Gods, they were also hit by the shockwave, spitting out blood as they were sent flying thousands of feet away. Both of them suffered internal injuries from the shock. Their breaths were in a mess and their battle powers were weakened. They fell into the ruins, smashing 2 deep holes in the ground, creating a wide crack, sending smoke and dust into the sky. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing's eyes flashed with a sharp cold glint as he thought to himself, "These two are injured and their divine power is unstable, so there are gaps in their defense. Previously during this period of time, I have been secretly poisoning them. But they are very vigilant and the strong poison has not been able to invade their bodies. Now that they are injured, the strong poison has a chance to take advantage of them. They are finished." From the start of the battle, Ji Tianqing had been secretly executing the strong poison law. He was very clear that the 3 of them were all upper Sir gods, with strong abilities and rich battle experience. It was very difficult to use ordinary strong poison, so only those kind of strong poison which was hidden and subtle could succeed. And this kind of strong poison required a very long time before it could succeed. He originally thought that he would need to delay for at least 15 minutes before the 2 Sir gods were corroded by the strong poison. By then, he would have a chance to turn the tables. But he did not expect that in order to kill him as soon as possible, the 2 Sir gods did not care about their own safety and attacked him with all their might. This resulted in the shock wave from the clash between him and the purple-robed elder injuring the 2 Sir gods. The strong poison took advantage of the gap, and the 2 Sir gods were immediately corroded by the strong poison. Their arms and faces were dyed with a layer of blue. Following that, the strong poison wreaked havoc in their bodies, rapidly corroding their meridians and blood vessels, and spreading to their brains. Once the strong poison invaded their divine spark, the 2 Sir gods' consciousness would become blurry, and they would gradually fall into a coma. If they were not treated and expelled in time, their lives would be in danger. Puffed, puffed. The 2 Sir gods had just climbed up from the ruins and were about to fly up into the night sky to continue attacking Ji Tianqing when they spat out blood arrows at the same time. Sensing that something was amiss and that they had been poisoned, the 2 Sir gods' expressions changed drastically. Chapter 30:14. Damn it, how did I get poisoned? Damn it, I've also been poisoned. My bloodline has been corroded. The 2 Sir God Realm experts exchanged looks. They were so frightened that they screamed angrily. Immediately, they felt a stabbing pain all over their bodies, as if they were being cut by knives. Their internal organs were also burning with pain, as if they were being burned. The unbearable pain made them tremble all over, and their teeth creaked as they gritted their teeth. We already knew that the little bastard was good at using poison, so we were very cautious. But we didn't expect that we would still fall into his trap. The 2 divine lords didn't dare to delay and stopped attacking Ji Tianqing. They hurriedly circulated their energy to expel the poison. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing ignored his injuries and charged over with the burial of heaven. He wanted to quickly kill the 2 divine lords while they were poisoned. Only then could he focus on dealing with the purple-robed elder. Unfortunately, Ji Tianqing was stopped by the purple-robed elder just as he flew out with his sword. The purple-robed elder also realized that the 2 divine lords were poisoned and couldn't fight for the time being. Ji Tianqing wanted to take the opportunity to kill, so he could only block him. Swish! Swish! The purple-robed elder swung his divine sword with all his strength, sending out sword beams that covered the sky and enveloped Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing was stopped, so he could only give up on the 2 divine lords and use all his strength to block the purple-robed elder's attack. Clang! 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 The purple-robed elder was indeed stronger. Ji Tianqing used all his strength to block and counterattack, but he couldn't get rid of his opponent. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the 2 Sir gods who were poisoned hurriedly consumed divine elixirs to heal their wounds. But the poison that Ji Tianqing had deliberately released was too overbearing. Even if they consumed detoxification pills and circulated their divine power to expel the poison, they still couldn't get rid of it. The 2 Sir gods were so worried that their hearts were burning with anxiety and fear. Cold sweat broke out all over their bodies. At this time, the purple-robed old man's divine sense detected a divine light shining from the west gate of the capital city. There were a few Sir gods leading dozens of experts rushing over at lightning speed. Damn it, as expected, after dragging it out for too long, we were discovered by the imperial city's guards. The purple-robed elder frowned and cursed in his heart. At the same time, he released his divine perception towards Chungyang Courtyard. There was no doubt that the vicinity of Chungyang Courtyard had also lit up with divine light. Several auras of divine lord powerhouses were currently rushing over with lightning speed. In the previous 15 minutes, the commotion caused by the fighting was too great. The loud noise spread for thousands of miles, and the divine light shone for thousands of miles. The imperial guards of the Chungyang residence and the imperial capital had only just arrived to check on the situation. Their reactions were already considered slow. Damn it! The purple-robed old man's expression became increasingly unsightly as he cursed hatefully. He knew full well that it was time for them to withdraw. If they couldn't kill Ji Tianqing within 100 breaths of time and cause such a huge commotion, their mission had already failed. No matter how unwilling he was, he could only grit his teeth and make up his mind. He ordered the two Sir Gods, "Don't just stand there, retreat quickly, I will cover you." The two poisoned Sir Gods already had half of their bodies turning blue and were twitching all over. Even if they stayed, they wouldn't be able to fight much and would even become a burden. Hearing the purple-robed old man's order, the two of them turned around without hesitation and flew towards the night sky in the north. They also knew that the situation was urgent and they had to retreat as soon as possible. Even if they were covered in wounds and were poisoned, they endured the pain and increased their speed to the maximum. In less than 10 breaths of time, they had flown over 1,000 miles away. Ji Tianqing was rather anxious. He wanted to stop the two Sir Gods and at least kill one or two of them. He wanted to seize their godheads and refine their divine souls and memories. In this way, he would be able to find out who sent these three Sir Gods. Unfortunately, the purple-robed old man blocked him with all his might, making it impossible for him to withdraw. Soon another 5 breaths of time passed. The group of imperial guards from the imperial capital was still 2,000 miles away from the battlefield. As for the Sir God experts from the Chungyang side courtyard, they were only 600 miles away from Ji Tianqing and the purple-robed old man. The purple-robed old man saw that the time was up and he couldn't stay any longer. He made a feint at Ji Tianqing and teleported away from the battlefield. Ji Tianqing had already guessed that the purple-robed old man would escape and was prepared to stop him. However, the purple-robed old man was slightly stronger and his teleportation ability had reached perfection. He wanted to stop him, but he was a quarter of an instant too slow and the purple-robed old man escaped. In the next moment, the purple-robed old man teleported 1,000 miles away and disappeared without a trace. Damn it! Ji Tianqing didn't chase after him. He stared coldly at the night sky in the north and cursed under his breath. Although he could vaguely guess the identities of the three Sir Gods. However, the current situation in the imperial capital was confusing, and he didn't dare to be completely sure. I thought that after reaching the 3rd level of the Sir God realm, I would be able to fight against an 8th level upper level Sir God. I didn't expect to meet such experienced Sir Gods. I'm still a little weak and can only remain undefeated. Ji Tianqing muttered to himself and sighed. He was also eager to break through to the 4th level and become a middle-level Sir God. At this moment, the experts from the Chungyang side courtyard arrived at the battlefield. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 3 figures flashed with divine light and appeared in front of Ji Tianqing. The leader was the second prince. Behind him was Sir God Yanlong and a burly man in golden armor. The 3 of them were upper-level Sir Gods and had a strong aura. The man in golden armor was also present at the Chungyang side courtyard. However, he didn't participate in the banquet and had been guarding the secret chamber. Ji Tianqing used his divine senses to check the situation in the side courtyard, and sensed the aura of this person. After the 3 of them arrived, their gazes gathered on Ji Tianqing and they sized him up. He had already returned to his original appearance. His long hair was messy and his white robe was tattered and stained with blood. Seeing that his life wasn't in danger, the second prince heaved a sigh of relief. "Young Master Tianqing, what's going on? Who was it that ambushed you here and injured you?" The second prince looked at him with concern and asked angrily. Ji Tianqing said calmly, "The 3 upper-level Sir Gods all hid their true faces. I don't know their identities or origins. Hearing this, the second prince's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. Sir God Yanlong and the man in golden armor were also shocked and in disbelief. They had long known that Ji Tianqing was very strong and comparable to an upper-level Sir God. However, they didn't dare to believe that Ji Tianqing had only suffered light injuries after being ambushed by 3 upper-level Sir Gods and fighting for so long. If it were them, they definitely wouldn't be able to do it. Didn't this mean that Ji Tianqing was one of the best among upper-level Sir Gods and was stronger than the 3 of them? The 3 of them didn't move as this thought flashed through their minds. The second prince was furious and ordered in a deep voice, "Yanlong, immediately send someone to investigate this matter. We must find the culprit." Tonight, this prince hosted a banquet at the Chongyang side courtyard in honor of young Master Tianqing. In the end, young Master Tianqing was ambushed the moment he left the Chongyang side courtyard and was injured. If we don't find out the truth, others will think that this prince did it. Chapter 30:15. The second prince's words were very straightforward. Obviously, he was telling Ji Tianqing that this had nothing to do with him. But Ji Tianqing did not know him well enough, so he could not be sure if he was telling the truth. After all, it was normal for a scheming person like the second prince to not be able to tell the truth from the lies. Yanlong cupped his hands and acknowledged the order. He quickly sent a message jade slip to convey the second prince's order. At this moment, the group of experts and masters from the royal city also arrived at the battlefield. The leader was actually the third prince, who was wearing a golden python robe. Beside him were 2 upper-level divine lords wearing golden armor, and the insignia of the Imperial Guard. Judging from their strength, attire and insignia, they should be the commanders of the Imperial Guard. Behind the 3 of them in the night sky, there were more than 60 Imperial Guards wearing silver armor and holding long spears and halberds. All of them were first or second level divine lords. If they were among the commoners, they would definitely be powerful. Everyone knew that these dozens of Imperial Guards were the best of the best. The third prince and the others hurriedly arrived at the battlefield. Their eyes were locked on Ji Tianqing as they flew over worriedly. I was wondering who was fighting outside the city and causing such a big commotion. So, it's young Master Tianqing. The third prince recognized Ji Tianqing. Seeing him injured, the third prince was very surprised and shocked. He turned his head and saw the second prince beside Ji Tianqing. He immediately frowned. Why is second brother here too? The third prince was the commander of the Imperial Guard appointed by the king. He had full authority to command 20,000 Imperial Guards. Although he was usually quite free and handed the matters of the Imperial Guard to the commanders, he was still in charge of the Imperial Guard. But these 2 days were the Lantern Festival, and there were many people in the royal city. It was very easy for accidents to happen. So, he could only personally lead the Imperial Guard to maintain order and safety in the royal city. Just now, he heard from his subordinates that there was a big commotion outside the western suburbs. After hearing the news, he was filled with anger and rushed over with his trusted generals. He did not expect to see Ji Tianqing and the second prince here. Hearing the third prince's question, the second prince smiled and took the initiative to explain. "Third brother, there is something you don't know. Please listen to my explanation. This prince has long heard of young Master Tianqing's deeds and has long been in awe of him. Tonight, this prince will host a banquet in Chongyang Courtyard to entertain him. This can be considered as fulfilling the duties of a host." Who would have thought that young Master Tianqing would encounter an ambush right after he left the courtyard? There were a total of 3 high divine lords on the other side, and they all wanted to kill young Master Tianqing. Fortunately, young Master Tianqing was strong enough to hold on for 7 or 8 minutes under the siege of the other party, and only suffered some minor injuries. I heard from my subordinates that there was a big battle here, so I rushed over to check the situation. The second prince did not hide anything and simply told him what had happened. After the third prince heard this, his expression did not change, but in his heart, he was muttering. Doesn't second brother have a deep grudge against young Master Tianqing? Why would they host a banquet for him? Moreover, young Master Tianqing actually agreed? He is not willing to be loyal to this prince and is neither close nor distant to this prince. Yet, he is in contact with second brother. What is he trying to do? At the thought of this, the third prince felt a little worried. However, he did not show it and hurriedly asked Ji Tianqing in concern. Young Master Tianqing, how are your injuries? Are they serious? Ji Tianqing shook his head and said, they're just light injuries, nothing serious. Third prince, you don't have to worry. That's good. The third prince nodded slightly and said in an indignant tone, which bastard actually ordered 3 high divine lords to attack young Master Tianqing? Killing people in public in the outskirts of the capital is simply disregarding the law. They must be caught and beheaded in public. With that, he ordered the golden-armored commander beside him, Commander Mo, bring everyone to check the battlefield and investigate the clues and traces. Commander Mo hurriedly cupped his fists and bowed, acknowledging the order. Then, he brought more than 60 Imperial guards with him to investigate the battlefield. There was only one golden-armored commander left beside him. At this time, he looked at the second prince and sneered. Everyone knows that second brother and young Master Tianqing have a long-standing grudge against each other. I really don't understand why second brother would invite young Master Tianqing to be his guest. Moreover, the banquet was held in the western suburbs outside the capital. Most importantly, right after the banquet ended, young Master Tianqing was only 1,500 kilometers away, and the assassins could not wait to kill him. How can there be such a coincidence in the world? Second brother, aren't you going to explain? The third prince's intention was obvious. He was making things difficult for the second prince. Just now, the second prince had driven a wedge between him and Ji Tianqing. Now, he was also trying to drive a wedge between the second prince and Ji Tianqing. This was especially true when he claimed that those 3 high divine lords were assassins. This was already an obvious hint. Everyone knew that the assassins of the evil blood palace called themselves assassins. The second prince had expected that the third prince would point the finger at him. He was not angry. Instead, he spread his hands and looked at Ji Tianqing. He said with a wry smile, young Master Tianqing, did you see that? Just now, I said that someone must have misunderstood and thought that it was me who did it. You really didn't let me down. After that, he said to the third prince, third brother, this is indeed a coincidence. It's normal for you to suspect me. But this prince can pat his chest and swear that this matter has absolutely nothing to do with this prince. Young Master Tianqing is so elegant and knowledgeable. I drank and talked with him for half the night. I felt like old friends with him at first sight. I regret that I didn't meet him sooner. I can't wait to befriend him. Why would I order assassins to ambush him? The second prince said with certainty. He did not seem to be lying at all. But everyone knew that it was difficult for a shrewd person like him to judge whether he was telling the truth or not. The third prince stared at him expressionlessly and said in a low voice, second brother, you should know that we won't believe you easily. And I know that you're an expert in making what is false true and what is false false. It's useless for us to argue here. Let's wait for the results of the investigation to come out. The second prince nodded slightly in agreement. He looked at Ji Tianqing and asked, young Master Tianqing, what do you think? Ji Tianqing also nodded and said calmly, guessing is useless. We can only confirm the answer with real evidence. Before the truth comes out, you don't have to fight with each other to avoid letting the fishermen profit. The two princes were stunned when they heard the words fishermen reaping the benefits from the fight. They immediately understood Ji Tianqing's meaning. Their eyes lit up and they quickly nodded in agreement. You've woken us up from our days. Young Master Tianqing is right. Young Master Tianqing has just experienced danger, but he can still maintain his rationality and calm. It's really admirable. If the result is as young Master guessed, then we have to be careful. We underestimated that little brother before. His scheming and methods are not inferior to ours. The second prince and the third prince were smart people. There was no need for Ji Tianqing to say it. They could guess the answer with just a little hint. Moreover, they had reason to believe that this was very likely the doing of that person. His goal was to drive a wedge between the two princes. He wanted to sow discord between Ji Tianqing and the second prince. Chapter 30:16. The matter of Ji Tianqing being ambushed had more or less taken shape. He and the two princes had a preliminary answer in their hearts. However, they still had to wait for the results of the investigation by the Imperial Guards and Emperor Yanlong. If Yanlong and the commander of the Imperial Guards could find some clues and evidence on the battlefield, that would be great. Time passed quietly. Ji Tianqing and the two princes waited patiently. Unknowingly, a quarter of an hour passed. Emperor Yanlong and the man in golden armor searched the battlefield within a radius of 1,000 miles twice, but found no useful clues. They returned to the second prince to report. Before the second prince could ask, the two of them shook their heads in disappointment. Although they were disappointed, they had expected it. After all, the three divine emperors were all experienced experts. They were very cautious. How could they leave important clues and traces? Just then, suddenly, a beam of light flew from the sky and landed in front of Ji Tianqing. After the spiritual light dissipated, a golden jade slip appeared. There was a special imprint on it. Seeing the mark on the jade slip, Ji Tianqing's eyebrows twitched. He had a bad feeling. The two princes also stared at the jade slip with different expressions. The third prince recognized the mark. He frowned and murmured, "Message jade slip from Lai Fu? Did something happen in the Changfeng courtyard?" Ji Tianqing did not say anything. He quickly picked up the message jade slip and read the content with his divine sense. Lai Fu's old voice immediately sounded in his mind. "Young Master Tianqing, something big happened. An expert sneaked into the Changfeng courtyard, injured Zhenhong, and kidnapped the young master." Lai Fu's tone was very anxious and worried. He was panting. Apparently, he had just finished a battle. Ji Tianqing's body immediately stiffened. His face changed dramatically, and his eyes became gloomy like ice. Anger and killing intent suddenly surged out of his body. His eyes were dyed with a layer of blood. "You are courting death." The two words burst out of his throat. It was like piercing ice and also like a sharp blade that could kill people. The two princes both felt an immense pressure, as well as a terrifying killing intent that shook the heavens. The two of them looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. However, they all knew very well that Ji Tianqing was truly enraged and was about to start a massacre. That's strange. He was attacked by three divine monarchs and was badly injured. Yet, he was still able to remain calm and rational. What exactly happened to make him so angry? The two princes were puzzled. Without saying a word, Ji Tianqing put away the golden jade slip and turned to leave at lightning speed, heading straight for the west gate of the royal city. "Young Master Tianqing, what happened?" The second prince raised his hand, wanting to ask Ji Tianqing to stay and ask him about the situation. However, Ji Tianqing ignored him. His figure flickered a few times and disappeared into the darkness. The third prince also turned and left without hesitation, chasing after Ji Tianqing to the west gate of the royal city. At the same time, he also sent a voice transmission to the two commanders of the imperial army and ordered, "Go to the Changfeng courtyard immediately. Something big has happened." The two commanders of the Imperial Guards received the order and quickly gathered the Imperial Guards who were investigating the battlefield and rushed to the Changfeng courtyard at the fastest speed. 15 minutes later, Ji Tianqing returned to the Changfeng courtyard. Lai Fu, with messy hair and sweaty forehead, was waiting in the courtyard of the East Wing, anxiously pacing back and forth. The East Wing was Wu Shuang's residence. At this time there were more than 50 guards guarding the small courtyard, and no one was allowed to come close. When Ji Tianqing teleported back and appeared in the small courtyard, Lai Fu breathed a sigh of relief as if relieved of a heavy burden. He hurried to greet him and saluted. "Young master, you're finally back." Ji Tianqing's face and aura were frighteningly gloomy. He did not waste time and ignored Lai Fu. He directly released his divine sense to cover the entire Changfeng courtyard and carefully explore. He saw that the East Wing, which covered an area of 100 feet, had become dilapidated. More than a dozen houses had collapsed, and many broken fences and walls were exposed in the ruins. There were also several ravines in the small courtyard, and the defensive formation had long been broken. Obviously, there had been a fierce battle here. Although the destructive power was very strong, the two sides fought for a very short time. Based on this, Ji Tianqing was able to deduce that, after the assassins sneaked into the East Wing, They defeated Zhenhong in a few moves and took Wushuang away. At this time, the third prince also rushed back and landed in the small courtyard. Lai Fu hurried to greet him and respectfully bowed. "My lord, why are you here?" The third prince did not answer. His face was very serious and his heart was heavy. After all, the Changfeng courtyard was his property. Ji Tianqing's family had an accident here, and he could not absolve himself from the blame. If he did not handle it well, it was likely to cause Ji Tianqing to break with him. Therefore he must treat it seriously. While exploring the small courtyard with his divine sense, he asked Lai Fu, "What happened?" Lai Fu did not dare to be long-winded, and answered concisely, "Tonight, the young master is resting in the bedroom, and Zhenhong is guarding outside the door. A quarter of an hour ago, 2 assassins sneaked into the courtyard and took the young master. It happened so suddenly that Zhenhong was attacked as soon as he realized that something was wrong. She only resisted 2 moves and was seriously injured by the assassins. She could only watch the other person take the young master away. When I heard the fighting, I immediately came to check the situation. At that time, the 2 assassins had already escaped with the young master. Zhenhong was seriously injured, and I wanted to heal her. But she refused. She said that she must not disappoint young Master Tianqing's trust. Even if she had to exchange her life for it, she must save the young master. When he heard this, the third prince had already understood the general idea. He frowned and asked, "So Zhenhong went to chase the 2 assassins?" Lai Fu nodded and said, "Yes. I was afraid that Zhenhong's injury was too serious and she could not hold on, so I let the 2 guard captains go with her. Then I sent a message to young Master Tianqing and reported the news." As soon as his voice fell, Ji Tianqing had finished his investigation. He stared at Lai Fu and asked, "In which direction did they escape?" Lai Fu was startled for a moment. He pointed to the direction of the North City and said, "They went north. They have already left Yunwu City." Without saying a word, Ji Tianqing directly teleported away from Changfeng Courtyard and rushed toward the North City gate. The third prince told Lai Fu and quickly followed Ji Tianqing to the north. "After Old Mo and Old Su come, let them take people to the north to chase." Lai Fu certainly knew that Old Mo and Old Su were the 2 most valued imperial guards under the third prince's command. He couldn't help but be startled for a moment and murmured in confusion, "The 2 commanders took the imperial guards and followed the lord? What happened before? Didn't young Master Tianqing go to the banquet? How could the lord and young Master Tianqing be together?" Before he could figure it out, the 2 commanders of the imperial guards took more than 60 imperial guards and flew into the Changfeng courtyard like a tide. Lai Fu did not dare to delay and quickly transmitted the third prince's order to the 2 commanders. The 2 commanders received the order and quickly left Changfeng courtyard with the imperial guards and rushed to the north. Yunwu City was destined to be turbulent tonight. Wushuang was Ji Tianqing's reverse scale. After tonight, there would be a monstrous massacre. Fengyun Reading Network. Chapter 30:17. Ji Tianqing thought that even if the other party was sinister and cunning, they would not break into the Changfeng courtyard. In Yunwu City they had to be more restrained. After all, everyone in Yunwu City knew that it was the third prince's courtyard. Once the other party sent people to the Changfeng courtyard, it was equivalent to openly declaring war on the third prince. Therefore, when he went to the banquet in the Chongyang courtyard, it was inconvenient to take Wushuang with him, so he let her rest in the Changfeng courtyard. He was a bit worried, so he had Zhenhong stay close to Wushuang to protect her. But he underestimated the other party's madness. In order to take revenge on him, they sent experts to break into the Changfeng courtyard and forcibly took Wushuang away. This undoubtedly showed that the other party was determined to kill him by hook or by crook. Originally, all forces in Yunwu City had to keep a low profile and abide by the basic rules of the game. Since the other party broke the rules, Ji Tianqing had nothing to worry about. Kill everyone on the other side, regardless of their strength or identity. Half an hour later, Ji Tianqing left Yunwu City and flew 50,000 miles to the north. He was worried, so he flew at an extremely fast speed. The third prince, 2 Imperial Army commanders, and dozens of Imperial Army elites could not keep up with him. When he flew over a vast mountain range, Ji Tianqing's divine sense detected 2 auras of divine emperors on a mountain peak 3,000 miles to the left. He released his divine sense to investigate carefully, and found that the 2 auras were the guard captains of the Changfeng courtyard. In addition, there was another person on the mountain peak. It was Sir God Zhenhong, who was seriously injured and had a weak aura. Swish! Ji Tianqing quickly flew over and landed next to Sir God Zhenhong. Zhenhong was lying on the grass, unconscious. Her red hair was disheveled and stained with blood, covering half of her face. She looked extremely embarrassed, and the long dress she was wearing was torn in many places, revealing several wounds. Her left shoulder was twisted, and the broken bone was exposed in the wound, dripping with blood. Especially in her chest and abdomen, there was a bowl-sized bloody hole, which was still bleeding. It was a shocking sight. Obviously, she was seriously injured and had fainted. The 2 bodyguard captains were guarding her, as anxious as ants on a hot pan. One of them helped her channel divine power to suppress her injuries. Another person fed her a divine pill and performed a healing technique to help her stop the bleeding. Seeing that Ji Tianqing had arrived, the 2 captains heaved a sigh of relief. He raised his head to greet Ji Tianqing, then lowered his head to continue working. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing frowned and said in a deep voice, "Get out of the way." The strength of the 2 guard captains was slightly lower, and their treatment methods were very mediocre. Knowing that Ji Tianqing was going to save Zhenhong, the 2 of them hurriedly retreated. Inside the heaven-mending orb, there were still thousands of life-saving divine lights that could revive thousands of martial gods. However, Zhenhong was a divine lord powerhouse. Ji Tianqing could only release all of his life-saving divine light and pour it into her body. As he extended his palms, he activated the power of the heaven-mending orb. A dense sacred white light gushed out of his palm and enveloped Zhenhong, who was seriously injured and unconscious. Soon thousands of life-saving divine lights were injected into her body. Under the watchful eyes of the 2 guard captains, the wounds on Zhenhong's body healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. The blood stopped flowing and the wounds healed quickly. Even her divine power was recovering quickly. Her originally weak and chaotic divine soul aura also gradually stabilized. After a few breaths, Zhenhong was out of danger. After 100 breaths, the wounds all over her body healed, and her injuries were greatly reduced. When the 2 guard captains saw this scene, they were so shocked that they were dumbfounded. They couldn't help but exclaim in surprise and disbelief. At this moment, the 3rd prince, the 2 guard captains, and more than 60 elite guards arrived at the mountain peak. Seeing Zhenhong unconscious on the ground, the 3rd prince quickly asked about her situation. After learning that she was seriously injured and unconscious, and that Ji Tianqing had healed her, the 3rd prince felt slightly relieved. Soon Zhenhong slowly woke up. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw Ji Tianqing, the 3rd prince, the 2 guard captains, and the 2 guard captains surrounding her. Everyone looked at her with a dignified expression, their eyes full of concern. She quickly got up and was about to salute everyone. The 3rd prince raised his hand to stop her and asked anxiously, "Zhenhong, you tracked the murderer here and fell unconscious? What about the murderer? Which direction did he escape in?" At the mention of this matter, Zhenhong's eyes dimmed, and an expression of extreme self-blame appeared on her face. She said guiltily, "My lord, young Master Tianqing, I'm sorry. Zhenhong is useless. I failed to live up to your trust and failed to protect the young lord." Ji Tianqing frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, "Let's talk about this later. Tell me first, where did the murderer escape to? Do you have any clues?" Zhenhong felt even more ashamed and lowered her head even more. "The murderer? Zhenhong is useless. I couldn't catch up with the murderer and was left further and further behind. They escaped to the north. Before I fell unconscious, I could still track their aura. Now that I've been left behind, I can't detect their residual aura." Obviously, they had lost track of them. Ji Tianqing was full of unwillingness and continued to ask, "Then did you see clearly what the 2 murderers looked like? Did they have any special characteristics?" Zhenhong thought seriously for a moment and shook her head with even more self-blame. "They should be 2 men. but I'm not sure if they're young or middle-aged. They were both wearing black robes and masks that covered their original faces. I couldn't see any markings or special characteristics. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing, the third prince, and the others looked even more disappointed. Zhen Hong was the best witness and the most crucial clue about the two murderers. But now the clue was broken. No matter how anxious Ji Tianqing was, he couldn't find the murderers' whereabouts. The third prince also understood this and hurriedly persuaded Ji Tianqing. Young Master Tianqing, don't be too anxious. You must calm down at this time. The clue is broken. Why don't we go back to Royal City first and discuss countermeasures? After a pause, he also said with self-blame, I'm also deeply sorry and angry that such a thing happened. Damn the murderers, they broke into the Longwind courtyard and kidnapped Wu Shuang. This is a public declaration of war against me. The other party not only wants to take revenge on you, but also wants to sow discord between us. Young Master Tianqing, please rest assured that I also have an unshirkable responsibility for this matter. I will definitely help you save Wu Shuang. Ji Tianqing nodded and said in a deep voice, although the clue is broken, I'm still not reconciled. Let's continue to look for clues around. After that, he left the mountain peak and flew north, carefully investigating the situation along the way. The third prince also quickly followed with the commander of the imperial army. Everyone spread out and flew across the night sky at a moderate speed, carefully searching a radius of 20,000 miles. In this area, no trace or clue could be hidden from everyone. But unfortunately, after searching for an hour and tens of thousands of miles, they didn't find any useful clues. In desperation, Ji Tianqing and the third prince could only leave and return to Royal City to make a long-term plan. Chapter 30:18. Ji Tianqing had been very anxious since Wu Shuang's accident. But at such a critical moment, he had to remain calm. Anger and irritation could not solve the problem. The most important thing was to think of a countermeasure. On the way back to the capital, Ji Tianqing frowned and pondered. As soon as they returned to the Changfeng court, Ji Tianqing and the third prince entered the study to discuss countermeasures. Two commanders of the imperial army followed them in, waiting for orders. Originally, the third prince wanted Zhen Hong to rest and heal. But she refused to rest and forced herself to enter the study to participate in the discussion. Wu Shuang's kidnapping made her feel very guilty and self-reproachful. At the same time, she felt that she had failed Ji Tianqing's trust and could not face Ji Tianqing. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing did not reprimand her. The secret room was dimly lit and the atmosphere was solemn and austere. The third prince said in a low voice, two things happened tonight. First, the second prince invited Mr. Tianqing to the Chongyang court as a guest, but they were ambushed on the way back. Immediately after, two divine monarchs invaded the Longwind court, injured Zhen Hong, and kidnapped young Miss Wu Shuang. This prince dares to conclude that these two matters are connected, and the other party has long planned this. Inviting Mr. Tianqing to the Chongyang court was the first step of the plan, luring the tiger away from the mountain. Sending people to infiltrate the Changfeng court and kidnap Miss Wu Shuang was the second step of the plan. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing shook his head and said, You mean the main culprit is the second prince? The third prince said calmly, I can't rule out this possibility. I don't dare to underestimate him at any time. Moreover, he has the motive and the ability to plan such a scheme. Ji Tianqing shook his head again and said, You're wrong. The king wants to appoint the fifth prince as the crown prince. You and the second prince have both lost. The fifth prince is the biggest winner. At this critical moment, your and the second prince's common enemy is the fifth prince. In order to fight for the position of crown prince and the king, the second prince has planned for so many years. At this juncture, he can't even cooperate with you, so how can he deal with me and kidnap my daughter? Is it more important to kill me? Or is it more important to seize the crown prince's position? The third prince immediately understood what he meant and said in a serious tone, The second prince invited you to the banquet tonight because he wants you to persuade me to cooperate with him? Do you mean that the fifth prince is the mastermind? Of course, Ji Tianqing said in a firm tone, I don't know what methods he used to make the monarch make him the crown prince. This was the decree of the monarch. As long as the monarch didn't pass away, it was basically a done deal. Therefore, the fifth prince had already won and would soon become the crown prince. At this time, what he wants to do the most is to take revenge and get rid of me, the thorn in his side. The third prince nodded in agreement. That makes sense. Ji Tianxing continued, besides you, the second prince, and I all underestimated the fifth prince. He must have planted spies in Changfeng court to monitor our every move. Therefore, he knew that my daughter was in Changfeng courtyard, and that I went to Chengyang courtyard to attend the banquet. This is an excellent opportunity for him. How could he let it go? Listening to his analysis, the third prince suddenly understood and nodded repeatedly. Yes, that was most likely the case. The fifth prince sent people to kill you. If the operation succeeded, he could frame the second prince, causing me and the second prince to turn against each other, and there would be no possibility of cooperation. If the plan failed, the fifth prince would send 2 other monarchs to sneak into Changfeng courtyard to kidnap Miss Wushuang. In this way, they could use Miss Wushuang as a hostage to take the initiative and then find a way to deal with you. Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and said, that's right. This is the fifth prince's plan to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And it's one step after another, interlinked. His goal is to get rid of me. Before he kills me, Wushuang should be safe. Let's wait. It won't be long before they carry out the third step of the plan. The third prince nodded again and said in a dignified tone, next, he will send someone to send you a message, asking you to go to a certain place to see Miss Wushuang. And that place, he has already set up a large number of troops and set up an inescapable net. If you don't want anything to happen to Miss Wushuang, you must go to that place and walk into the net. Speaking of this, he sneered and said, then we will wait for his message. I will gather a large number of imperial guards and see what tricks he can play. Ji Tianxing glanced at him and asked, nominally, the imperial guards are the sword of the monarch. You used a large number of imperial guards to help me deal with my private affairs. Aren't you afraid that he will complain and the monarch will punish you in anger? The third prince sneered and said, the monarch is about to appoint the fifth prince as the crown prince. I have already lost all my previous efforts. What is there to be afraid of? Besides, the fifth prince sent people to Changfeng courtyard to kidnap Miss Wushuang. This is not just a public slap in my face. This is simply pressing my face to the ground and stepping on it. He's already so deranged and lawless. Why should I care about feelings? Ji Tianxing nodded and said, you are willing to help, which proves that I did not misjudge you. But you still underestimate the fifth prince. He will not let us do as we wish. Then I have to think about how to do it secretly and hide from his eyes and ears. The third prince understood what he meant and nodded with a dignified expression. Time quietly passed by. Soon an hour had passed. It was dawn, the darkest time of the day. This time, a messenger guard came to the door of the study and reported respectfully, my lord, someone just sent a secret letter to young Master Tianhang to personally read. The eyes of Ji Tianxing, the third prince, and the others flickered as they gathered their focus. It's here. Sure enough, it's as we expected. The guard entered the study and handed the letter to Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing picked up the letter, pulled out the letter paper and spread it on the desk. There were 2 lines of bold and powerful words written on the letter paper. 7 in the morning, West Wind Town in the north. If you don't want your daughter to lose her life, come alone. Don't try to play tricks. You should be very clear that we have eyes everywhere in Royal City. The letter was very clear, and everyone read it at a glance. The atmosphere in the secret room became heavy and solemn again. The third prince frowned, full of worry. You guessed right. He had long guessed that I would help you, so, unfortunately, they also have eyes in Changfeng courtyard. Even if I quietly leave with the imperial army, I will most likely be discovered. Young Master Tianxing, let me think of a way. How can I help you? Ji Tianxing casually shot out a flame, burning the letter to ashes, and said indifferently, no need to think, I have a way. Chapter 30:19. No one knew what Ji Tianxing, the third prince and others discussed in the secret room. The people of the Changfeng courtyard only knew that the third prince was full of resentment and helplessness, and left dejectedly. Looking at that appearance, He seemed to be unable to help Ji Tianqing, so he felt guilty and annoyed. Of course, 2 commanders of the imperial army and more than 60 elites of the imperial army were also taken away by him. After leaving the Changfeng courtyard, the third prince and others returned to the palace and rested. At least, the spies and informants hidden in the dark saw the result. But no one knew that Ji Tianqing had quietly left the Changfeng courtyard with the help of the armillary sphere secret technique. He was not discovered by anyone and quietly sneaked into the palace. Then he found the third prince, the commanders of the imperial army, and the 60 elites of the imperial army one by one. Under his guidance, everyone entered the Jiutian Tenju Tower and stayed on the 3rd floor of the tower. There was no other way. The 1st floor of the tower had too many ancient buildings, and the 2nd floor had the statues and altars of the primitive demon god. The 4th floor was a boundless sea, in which there were hundreds of millions of sea beast bones. There were too many clues in these spaces, and it was easy to expose the secrets of the tower. Only the 3rd floor space was a dark wasteland. There was only an ancient tomb made of black stone in the middle. As early as many years ago, Ji Tianqing had cracked the ancient tomb. The demon god scriptures and secret techniques hidden in the ancient tomb were also given to Ji Ku to practice. Now the ancient tomb was ruined, and only a pile of broken black stone was left. It was useless, and it would not expose the secrets of the Jiutian Tenju Tower. After a while, Ji Tianqing settled the third prince and the imperial army. Everyone stayed in the dark space, sitting cross-legged and waiting patiently. Ji Tianqing quietly returned to the Changfeng courtyard and entered the study room. The whole process was stealthy, and no one noticed the abnormality. Then, he lifted the state of invisibility and walked out of the study room openly. He did not take anyone with him, left the Changfeng courtyard alone, and rushed to the north gate of the royal city. In the process, no one knew how many eyes and divine sense were secretly watching him. Not only were there spies in Changfeng court, but there were also spies everywhere in King City. When the spies and informants saw Ji Tianqing leave royal city alone and fly towards the north, they hurriedly sent messages to report the news. And NB friends, please remind me. After reading for a long time, please pay attention to the rest of the eyes. 00 recommended reading SP. West Wind Town was located in the north of Royal City. It was a full 300,000 miles away from the royal city, situated in the depths of the majestic and desolate mountains. Many years ago, more than 3,000 God clan citizens had gathered in this small town. However, they were surrounded by mountains, where countless monsters and divine birds lived. They often attacked the people of West Wind Town, causing heavy casualties. Unable to bear the hardships, the people moved out of West Wind Town more than 200 years ago, and moved to a small town hundreds of thousands of miles away. West Wind Town was thus abandoned, and there were no citizens living there. Occasionally, some adventurers would pass by and stay there for a day or two. On the way to West Wind Town, Ji Tianqing was still silently calculating. No wonder the fifth prince chose West Wind Town. That place is desolate and uninhabited, suitable for him to set up an ambush. He has set up an inescapable net there waiting for me to die. He should be there in person to enjoy the fruits of victory, right? I hope he is in West Wind Town. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Ji Tianqing's eyes flashed with a cold light. He not only wants to save Wushuang, kill all the fifth prince's lackeys, and get rid of the fifth prince. If the fifth prince is also in West Wind Town, he can solve this problem once and for all. Unknowingly, 2 hours passed. Ji Tianqing hurried at his fastest speed, and had already flown 200,000 miles. At this moment, a communication jade slip flew over from the horizon and landed in front of him. It was just an ordinary jade slip, without any formation encryption. He picked up the jade slip, his divine sense entered it, and the voice of a young man sounded in his mind. At least you know your place and know that playing tricks is useless. However, you have to hurry, there is less than 2 hours left. Your daughter is very safe now. If you come late, you can only collect her corpse, ha 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 ha. This person's tone was sinister and low, filled with hatred and resentment. Ji Tianqing could guess that the person who sent the message was the fifth prince. From this message, he was able to analyze several pieces of information. Firstly, the fifth prince was indeed in West Wind Town and was waiting for him to die. Secondly, Wushuang's life was not in danger. This made him feel slightly more at ease, and he sped up his journey. Unknowingly, another hour had passed. He flew for another 100,000 miles, crossing over numerous majestic mountain ranges, and was about to arrive at West Wind Town. And friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading NBSP. At this time it was exactly 7:15. The golden sun had just risen from the horizon and was slowly rising into the sky. Boundless multicolored light shone on the mountains, causing the many cloud-shrouded peaks to be covered in a layer of gold. It was a magnificent sight, but Ji Tianqing wasn't in the mood to appreciate it. He spread out his divine sense and scouted West Wind Town a few thousand miles away. Soon he found the small town in the mountains. Sure enough, it was surrounded by mountains on all sides and was located in a flat valley. A clear river that was 100 feet wide passed through the middle of the small town and flowed south along the foot of the mountain. The small town was not big, only 10 miles in radius. There were hundreds of palaces and houses in the town, but they were all abandoned and old. Most of them had collapsed and become a pile of ruins, revealing many dilapidated walls. Even the houses and palaces that did not collapse were overgrown with weeds and were a mess. Perhaps the fifth prince was fearless and was not afraid that Ji Tianqing would not come. There were actually 300 experts around the small town, all of them at the 8th and 9th level of the celestial god realm. Those experts were all wearing black armor, holding sabers, swords, and long spears surrounding the small town. In addition, there was a palace that occupied an area of 10,000 feet in the middle of the small town. That palace was relatively well preserved and still had a majestic and solemn aura. Ji Tianqing detected that there were actually hundreds of Divine Lord Realm experts outside the palace, even though they were all first and second level Divine Lords. But there were nearly 100 of them, and they were still a very powerful and terrifying force. Most importantly, he even detected the auras of 6 high-level Divine Lords inside the palace. It's indeed an inescapable net, a sure kill trap. Fortunately, he's a prince and has a powerful backer. That's why he can gather so many Divine Lord experts. A cold light flashed across Ji Tianqing's eyes as he muttered to himself. From the looks of it, he has failed too many times previously. Even the Bloodsword sect was destroyed by me. This time he must get rid of me. That's why he's willing to put in so much effort in order to be foolproof. Including the third prince, there were 6 high-level Divine Lords, nearly 100 low-level Divine Lords, and 300 celestial god experts. With such a powerful force, not to mention killing Ji Tianqing, even destroying sects like the Bloodsword sect and Bloodblade sect was more than enough. Before entering West Wind Town, Ji Tianqing already felt the fifth prince's killing intent. Chapter 30:20. Whoosh! There was a flash of white light and Ji Tianqing descended from the sky, landing in West Wind Town. The eyes and divine senses of the 300 celestial gods gathered on him. They all sneered, their eyes filled with mocking killing intent. Even the 100 or so lesser divine lords outside the palace noticed Ji Tianqing's arrival and began to size him up with their divine senses. Ji Tianqing walked toward the palace without a change in expression, ignoring everyone's reaction. 100 breaths later, he arrived at the palace gates. The lower divine lords guarding outside the palace all looked at him in unison. Many of them quietly gripped their swords and sabers, their expressions wary and wary. They had no choice. They had heard of Ji Tianqing's fame and battle achievements many times, and were extremely afraid of Ji Tianqing. There were also some lesser divine lords who were gloating, sneering with mocking expressions and even whispering to each other. So he's Tianqing? There's nothing special about him. Haha. I heard that he was vicious and powerful, a ruthless character that could not be provoked. Now it seems that he's just a so-so. No matter how ruthless a character is in front of our Lord, won't he still obediently surrender and accept his death? He clearly knows that this is his grave and he still dares to come alone. I really admire his fearlessness. This guy's brain must have been flooded with water. Isn't it just his daughter being captured? He can just have another child with his wife, why throw away his life? So, even the most powerful expert has weaknesses and openings. Our Lord is still the most powerful. Everyone discussed in low voices as they sized up Ji Tianqing with complicated expressions. Ji Tianqing looked straight ahead, ignoring the numerous lesser divine lords as he strode into the hall. The palace was very spacious. Although it was old, it was exceptionally clean and spotless. There were gemstone lamps embedded in the walls, emitting a bright divine light that illuminated the palace. When Ji Tianqing walked into the main hall, he saw a luxurious throne inlaid with gems at the head of the hall. A thin young man wearing a golden python robe and a dark golden crown sat on the throne. This person could be considered handsome. His face was as pale as paper and his fingers were slender and clean. He looked rather cultured and refined. Unfortunately, his eyes ruined his temperament. His eyes were long and narrow like willow leaves, slanted upward toward his temples. Even under normal circumstances, his eyes were narrowed, making him look very cold and gloomy. He was definitely not a straightforward person. One could tell at a glance that this person was the most low-key and patient fifth prince. On his left, there were two Surgat experts in blue robes and purple robes who were standing by the side of the throne. To his right were three divine lords. Two of them were middle-aged divine race experts. The strongest one was the black-robed, white-haired old man. While Ji Tianqing was sizing up the fifth prince and the others, everyone's eyes were also focused on him, sizing him up with interest. Haha. You clearly know that this is the place this king chose for you to be buried, but you still came here without hesitation. Tianqing, I really admire your courage. The fifth prince looked down at Ji Tianqing, his right hand gently pinching his clean chin as he said with a smile. How is it? At this moment, what are your thoughts? Ji Tianqing looked at him expressionlessly and said in a low voice, I've arrived on time. Where's my daughter Wu Shuang? The fifth prince smirked and said, What's the hurry? Your daughter is fine. I don't want to do anything to a child. But you've already done it, Ji Tianqing said coldly. Shame and anger flashed in the fifth prince's eyes, but he immediately covered it up. He quickly changed the topic and said with a cold smile, From the day you offended me and became my enemy, you were destined to end up like this. Although I've lost a few times during this period, that's because I've never taken you seriously and underestimated you. Now that I've taken you as my opponent and set up such a big formation to kill you, you must be honored, right? Ji Tianqing said indifferently, You thought you were noble and disdained to take me as your opponent. But the result was that you repeatedly failed in front of me, and even your most loyal lackey, the Bloodsword sect, was wiped out by me. Such a tragic defeat caused you to suffer heavy losses, lose face, and become the laughingstock of the entire divine kingdom. So you did not hesitate to gather so many experts to deal with me, just to wash away your shame. Now the more proud you are, the more you want to vent your anger and resentment, the more it proves how badly you lost and how embarrassed you were. Indeed, the fifth prince had long hated him to the bone and regarded him as a thorn in his side. It was not easy to set up this trap and lure Ji Tianqing to West Wind Town. How could he bear to kill him? That would not be enough to vent his anger. He wanted to humiliate Ji Tianqing and torture Ji Tianqing. When his anger subsided, he would completely kill Ji Tianqing. But Ji Tianqing had long been aware of the fifth prince's thoughts. These words were merciless and exposed the fifth prince's shameful act in front of everyone. The fifth prince's heart burst with anger again, his hands trembling and the corners of his eyes twitching. However, he was confident of victory and considered himself the winner, so he quickly suppressed his anger. Haha, no wonder you make enemies everywhere and are so hateful. The fifth prince grinned and sneered, not hiding the murderous look on his face. Speaking another word to a lowly person like you is blasphemy to me. Ji Tianqing said indifferently, Some people look like gold and jade, but are actually worthless. They think they are noble and unparalleled, but are actually as lowly as insects. And some people's nobility and extraordinariness are beyond your imagination. The fifth prince flew into a rage again. His fists were clenched so tightly that creaking sounds could be heard. The veins on his forehead were bulging, and he almost could not help but attack. Too hateful, too damn infuriating. The blue-robed divine lord beside the throne immediately scolded, "Little bastard, don't be so arrogant. Your daughter is in our hands, and now you are also a prisoner. Don't forget your situation. The life and death of you and your daughter are in the hands of the fifth prince. If you want your daughter to live, kneel down and kowtow obediently and beg for mercy." When the fifth prince heard these words, the anger in his heart subsided. "Men, bring that little girl here." Following his order, the stone door in the corner of the hall opened. Two lower divine lords in silver armor escorted Ji Wushuang into the main hall. The moment Ji Wushuang appeared, Ji Tianqing looked at her with concern, checking on her condition. Fortunately, she had not been hurt or tortured. Her delicate hair and clothes were neat and tidy, and her mental state was also very clear. However, she was tied up with a dark golden rope, and her arms were behind her back. Not only was it difficult for her to move, but her divine power was also sealed. She could not fly or use divine powers. But no matter what, seeing that she was safe and sound, Ji Tianqing was completely relieved. The two divine lords escorted Wushuang to the fifth prince's throne. The fifth prince took out a dagger that glowed with green light and said with a cold smile, "I can't believe that such a lowly race and bloodline like yours could give birth to such a delicate and cute daughter. But I hate perfect things the most. If I can cut this pretty little face a few times, it should be very satisfying, right?" Chapter 30:21. Although Ji Wushuang also had the strength of a god, even if her face was cut a few times, she could heal the injury and recover to her original state. But Ji Tianqing was still worried. The fifth prince's ferocity would leave a psychological shadow on Wushuang. He didn't want his daughter to be hurt in the slightest. Fortunately, Ji Wushuang had been very calm and had a composure that didn't match her age. Even when the fifth prince put on such a big show and waved a poisoned dagger in front of her, she was never afraid. She just looked at Ji Tianqing worriedly, afraid that he would also fall here. After all, there were hundreds of experts and strong people in West Wind Town. Ji Tianqing couldn't leave alive by himself. Ji Tianqing stared coldly at the fifth prince and shouted in a deep voice, "If you are still a man and still care about the face of the royal family and nobles, then come at me." This was exactly what the fifth prince wanted. He sneered and said, "Haha, I was waiting for you to say that. If you don't want anything to happen to your daughter, then kneel down and kowtow to me." When he said this, the fifth prince was in an extremely good mood. The five monarchs beside him also showed a mocking smile, waiting to see Ji Tianqing make a fool of himself. Everyone knew that even if Ji Tianqing knelt down and kowtowed, the fifth prince wouldn't forgive him. He would definitely die without a doubt. But before killing him, the fifth prince had to humiliate him severely to vent his anger. Ji Tianqing was silent and stared coldly at the fifth prince, as if he was hesitating and weighing the pros and cons. But in fact he secretly said to Ji Wushuang, "Wushuang, don't be afraid, Dad will take you away safely. Do you still remember the divine power I taught you back then?" Ji Wushuang's divine power was sealed and she couldn't use divine power. But her divine soul wasn't unconscious and could still communicate with her divine consciousness. She immediately understood Ji Tianqing's meaning and asked, "Dad, are you talking about that phoenix returns to the nest?" Of course Wushuang remembers. "I even cultivated it once not long ago." Phoenix's nest was a divine ability that Ji Tianqing had imparted to Ji Wushuang many years ago. This included Yun Yao and Ji Wuhan, who had also cultivated this supreme technique. This divine ability was very mysterious, but it didn't have any destructive power. It was just a method of directional spatial teleportation. To put it simply, as long as one executed Phoenix returns to nest, one could instantly teleport into the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes Tower. No matter what kind of situation or space they were in, they would be able to return directly to the divine pagoda. Of course, the spellcaster had to be within a certain distance from the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes Tower. Being too far would not do. Ji Tianqing's heart was filled with gratification. He transmitted his voice to Qin Mu. "Although your divine power is sealed and you can't use Phoenix returns to nest, you can still use it. However, Father will use that divine ability, and use the power of the divine pagoda to take you back. You must not resist. This was the miraculous part of the phoenix's nest. Not only could the cultivator use it, but the tower holder could also use it in reverse. Ji Wushuang didn't answer. He quietly winked at Ji Tianqing, indicating that he understood. Meanwhile, the fifth prince and the other divine emperors couldn't help but urge Ji Tianqing when they saw that he was silent. Tianqing, what are you waiting for? Do you think my knife isn't sharp enough? Kid, you have to think carefully. Is your face more important or your daughter's life more important? Do you think it's as simple as cutting your daughter's face? The blue soul poison on the dagger can corrode her divine soul and turn her into a complete lunatic and idiot. Kid, the fifth prince's patience is limited. Don't court death. Seeing that everyone was impatient, the dagger in the fifth prince's hand was already itching to try. Ji Tianqing didn't hesitate any longer and immediately activated the mark of the divine pagoda on his left arm. A mysterious connection immediately formed between the divine pagoda and Ji Wushuang. Ji Tianqing quietly circulated his divine power and executed Phoenix returns to nest as quickly as possible. Swoosh! The next moment, a white light shot out from his left arm and enveloped Ji Wushuang at an incredible speed. Ji Wushuang was already prepared. When the mysterious white light enveloped her, she instantly disappeared. A quarter of an instant later, she appeared on the fifth floor of the divine pagoda and stood in the origin divine array. Even though she was still bound by the dark golden rope and couldn't use divine power, she was completely safe. Even an ordinary divine king expert couldn't break into the divine pagoda and hurt her. She was out of danger, but instead of rejoicing, she became even more worried. Dad saved me and will definitely anger the fifth prince and the other divine emperors. Would he be able to withstand the siege of so many experts and safely escape from West Wind Town? Dad has always been meticulous and reliable. He should be confident, right? Ji Wushuang stood on the altar and muttered to herself. At the same time, the fifth prince and the other divine emperors widened their eyes in disbelief, as if they had seen a ghost. Especially the fifth prince. The smug and mocking smile on his face froze on the spot. He looked at his empty left hand and then looked at Ji Tianqing's arm, confusion flashing through his eyes. A moment ago he was holding Ji Tianqing in his left hand and holding a poison dagger in his right, forcing Ji Tianqing to kneel and admit his guilt. But now Ji Wushuang had disappeared. Without any leverage, how could he threaten and humiliate Ji Tianqing? Bastard! What did you do? The fifth prince glared angrily at Ji Tianqing. His chest was burning with rage, and his expression was ferocious as if he was about to devour someone. The five divine emperors also looked murderous as they stared at Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing successfully saved Wushuang and no longer had any worries. He laughed contemptuously. Little bastard, you want to fight me? You're too naive. You dare to use my daughter to threaten me? You must be tired of living. As he spoke, he took out the sword of burial of heaven and released a murderous aura that soared to the sky. There was no need to hold back anymore. He only needed to release his anger and murderous intent to his heart's content. Such a drastic change caused the fifth prince to frown and sneer. Haha, you used a divine weapon to save your daughter while I was unprepared. Do you think you've won just like that? Don't get carried away. You are alone. While this king has 5 high-level divine lords and 400 elite experts, you and your daughter still have to die. Moreover, I'm going to tear you and your daughter into pieces and grind your bones to dust. As soon as the fifth prince finished speaking, Ji Tianqing couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense and attacked with all his might. Sword of daytime! He shouted coldly as he held the sword of burial of heaven with both hands and stabbed with all his might. Instantly, the tip of the sword emitted a dazzling golden light that instantly expanded to a radius of 1,000 feet and filled the entire palace. Kaboom! With an earth-shattering explosion, the huge palace collapsed on the spot, splashing out billions of brick fragments. A blazing golden sun emerged from the ruins and rose into the sky, illuminating the entire West Wind Town. With the ruins as the center, the destructive sword energy spread out and engulfed more than half of West Wind Town. The next moment, the ground within a radius of dozens of miles shook as if a super earthquake had occurred. Hundreds of palaces and mansions were smashed into pieces by the sword energy. The entire West Wind town was reduced to ruins. Chapter 30-22. The moment Ji Tianqing attacked, it was an all-out sword Dao ultimate technique. The power of this sword was truly terrifyingly powerful. Not only did it turn West Wind Town into ruins, it also injured more than a dozen low-level divine lords and more than 20 elite experts. However, the 5th prince and the 5 high-level divine lords were fine. When Ji Tianqing attacked, everyone realized that something was wrong and immediately cast spells to block, joining forces to protect the 5th prince. Even so, the incomparably violent impact still sent the 5th prince and the 5 high-level divine lords flying back more than 10 miles. The 6 of them drew an arc in the sky and fell into the messy ruins. After that, Ji Tianqing flew high into the sky and stood there, overlooking the ruins. Seeing the confused and fearful expressions on the faces of the lower divine lords and elite experts around him, the corners of his mouth curled up in a cold and sinister smile. The 5th prince and the 5 high-level divine lords also flew out of the ruins and stood high in the sky. They faced off against Ji Tianqing across the sky, tens of thousands of feet away. Little bastard. You're really courting death. This king originally wanted to let you live a little longer, but I didn't expect you to be so eager to die. Then this king will fulfill your wish. As he spoke, the 5th prince took out a dark golden divine sword and held it firmly in his hand. The black-robed, white-haired divine lord also stretched out his palms, his 10 fingers filled with dazzling 5-colored divine flames, his entire body bursting with a violent aura. He angrily glared at Ji Tianqing and coldly shouted, "Little bastard, you dare to attack hundreds of us alone? This is not confidence or courage, but arrogance and ignorance. This old man will immediately let you experience what it means to live a life worse than death." Ji Tianqing looked at the crowd with a cold smile and said, "I'm alone? Haha. To tell you the truth, I came here today to kill all of you. Not a single one will be left alive." As his voice fell, he opened the 3rd level of the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes pagoda. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Streaks of white light appeared in the sky one after another, continuing to appear without end. In a short 2 breaths, the 3rd prince and many experts of the Imperial Guard appeared in the sky. A total of 63 people lined up neatly in the sky, forming a formation. Previously, they had been waiting patiently in the darkness on the 3rd level of the Divine Pagoda. At this moment they could finally show themselves. All of them were clad in armor and wielding swords, emanating murderous aura. The 5th prince and many divine emperors were dumbfounded when they saw the 3rd prince and the Imperial Guards appear out of nowhere. "It's you? 3rd Imperial brother, and the Imperial Guards? How did you? This is impossible." "Didn't you all return to the palace to rest? Our spies have been monitoring him all the way. They clearly saw him alone. How could this be? How did you do it?" Everyone's expression changed drastically. They were both shocked and in disbelief. At the same time, a trace of worry appeared in his heart. The 3rd prince was also wearing a golden armor and holding a broad heavy sword. He angrily shouted with a dignified voice, "Old 5, you sent people to break into Changfeng courtyard and openly robbed my guests. How dare you? You're openly challenging the laws of the kingdom of God. You even used young Master Tianhong's daughter as a hostage to ambush him with a large army. This is even more sinister and despicable. Do you still have the demeanor of a royal child? You don't deserve to be a prince of the kingdom of God, let alone the crown prince. I'm ashamed to be your brother." The 3rd prince angrily rebuked the 5th prince with a righteous attitude. At least in terms of momentum, he completely had the upper hand. The 5th prince was extremely angry. He gritted his teeth and sneered, "Old 3, you actually went against your brother for this little bastard. How can you be worthy of father's cultivation? Winner takes all. What qualifications do you have to criticize me? Even if you're not convinced, father will appoint me as the crown prince. Your good days are over. Now think about how to curry favor with me so that you can keep your family business." Haha, what a joke. The 3rd prince looked up to the sky and laughed, full of disdain. "Father hasn't announced the edict yet, And you really think of yourself as the crown prince? You're so despicable and arrogant. You don't care about the laws of the kingdom of God and the face of the royal family. What qualifications do you have to be the crown prince? Now, as the governor of the imperial guards, I'm going to arrest you, a villain who has no regard for the law, and let father decide your crime. After that, the third prince looked at the Sir Gods with a dignified gaze and shouted, "The imperial guards are on duty to arrest criminals. Whoever dares to disobey will be sentenced to death." The Sir Gods and experts under the fifth prince's command suddenly looked worried, hesitant and fearful. The imperial guards were the king's sword, representing the dignity of the king and the kingdom of God. The crowd was also worried. What if this matter was blown out of proportion and they really wanted to pursue the matter? They worked for the fifth prince for a reason and for benefits. No one wanted to implicate their entire family. The fifth prince saw the strange look on the crowd's face and quickly sneered. "Old three, don't you use the king's authority to intimidate others. The imperial guards are father's guards. You use them without permission to help Tianqing settle his personal grudge. This is a heinous crime. Moreover, this is not King City." What qualifications do you have to arrest people? Hearing his words, the Sir Gods and experts were a little relieved and regained their confidence. The third prince frowned and wanted to argue a little more. Ji Tianqing had lost his patience and a look of disappointment flashed across his eyes. Before the operation, the third prince was extremely angry and looked like he was going to start a massacre regardless of anything. I didn't expect that he was just putting on a show in front of me. Now that they are confronting the fifth prince, they seem to be quarreling fiercely and look like they are going to kill each other if they disagree. But in fact, these two princes are only quarreling and don't want to kill each other. Although the two princes acted very realistically, how could they fool Ji Tianqing? He could see that the two princes had scruples and didn't dare to kill each other. The imperial guards were the third prince's trump card. The Sir Gods and experts around them were probably the fifth prince's trump card too. Both of them didn't want to waste each other's strength here, in case the second prince took advantage of them. But how could this work? What Ji Tianqing wanted was to engage in a chaotic battle and start a massacre. Therefore, while the two princes were arguing, he secretly used his poison divine power and released 9 invisible poisons. Under his precise control, the 9 poisons quietly spread among the Sir Gods and experts. But the third prince and the imperial guards beside him weren't affected. After releasing the poisons, Ji Tianqing waved the burial of heaven and charged at the few Sir Gods not far away with a thunderous force. They were 8 low-level Sir Gods. They were all holding Qinshin weapons and were ready to attack. They hadn't received the fifth prince's order to attack and didn't dare to act without permission. They also didn't expect Ji Tianqing to suddenly attack. Sun-shattering sword. The burial of heaven waved the sword and instantly slashed out 18 5-colored sword beams. They carried more than 60 nomological powers and enveloped the 9 Sir Gods. Chapter 30-23. Bam! 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 A series of muffled sounds exploded in the sky. The 9 lesser divine lords had no time to dodge and were sliced into several pieces by the sword light. Blood splattered and severed limbs flew everywhere. In the blink of an eye, 6 of the 9 lesser divine lords were killed by Ji Tianqing. The remaining 3 divine lords, whose godheads were still intact, flew out of their corpses in a panic and retreated into the distance. But the moment the 3 godheads appeared, Ji Tianqing swung his sword and sliced them into pieces. Kacha! Kacha! With a crisp shattering sound, the 3 godheads fell apart and scattered into dozens of pieces. The 9 lesser divine lords died on the spot. Both the fifth prince and the third prince were stunned by the sudden change. The two of them didn't expect Ji Tianqing to be so hot-tempered. He didn't care about the consequences at all and directly attacked. This guy was simply lawless. Seeing that Ji Tianqing did not stop, he brandished his sword and attacked the other divine lords. The fifth prince finally came to his senses and quickly ordered loudly, "Kill them! Kill him and chop him into pieces!" At this juncture he could not care about the consequences. If he did not fight back, more of the divine lords under his command would be slaughtered by Ji Tianqing. After receiving the fifth prince's order, the 300 experts and experts shouted loudly and launched a siege with murderous intent. Kill! Kill Tianqing and His Highness will reward you handsomely. As the roars rang out, the 300 experts and experts waved their Kenshin weapons wildly and released sword light and sword shadows that blotted out the sky. Ji Tianqing was fearless and immediately used the celestial dragon overlord body to transform into 1,000 feet tall golden armored god of war, and launched a counterattack. No matter how gloomy and unwilling the third prince was, he could only order the Imperial Guards to fight with all their might under such circumstances. After all, there were more than 300 people on the other side, and the divine skill light and shadows that filled the sky covered dozens of miles. If the Imperial Guards did not fight back, they would definitely suffer heavy casualties. Moreover, they were in the middle of the enemy's encirclement and had no way to escape. If he wanted to survive, he could only fight back. In the next moment, the divine abilities and secret techniques used by both sides collided fiercely in the sky, causing an earth-shattering explosion. Boom boom boom. Bang 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 bang. The deafening sound waves reverberated in the sky, spreading to a radius of 1,000 miles. Countless saber lights, sword shadows, and images of divine arts all shattered, exploding into billions of fragments of divine light. Violent and devastating shockwaves spread out in all directions. The ruined West Wind town immediately disappeared without a trace. Even the ground was dug hundreds of feet deep. In the first round of confrontation between the two sides, there were already severe casualties. Of the 300 enlightened masters under the fifth prince's command, dozens were killed, and more than 80 were seriously injured. Those people were either struck by the shockwaves or by the remnants of the divine abilities. Otherwise, he would be blasted into smithereens, and even his godhead would be shattered. Either their bodies were destroyed, their godheads were severely damaged, and they fled into the distance on their last breaths. After all, a battlefield where over 100 Divine Lord powerhouses were killing each other was not something that they could participate in. Not to mention injuring the Divine Lord powerhouses. If they were caught in the flames of battle, they would become cannon fodder. In addition, of the 90 Divine Lords under the fifth prince, 8 of them were seriously injured and almost died. That was Ji Tianqing's doing. Seeing that the upper Divine Lords were protecting the fifth prince, he did not attack him, but turned to kill the lower Divine Lords. Because the difference in numbers between the two sides was too great. He had to eliminate the Divine Lords under the fifth prince's command as quickly as possible. As for the third prince and the many Imperial Guards, the casualties were not too bad. Needless to say, the third prince was basically safe. The other side's experts did not dare to kill him, lest they bear the crime of murdering the prince and be chased to the ends of the earth by the Bloodfire divine country. Therefore, the experts under the fifth prince could only besiege Ji Tianqing and the Imperial Guards. However, Ji Tianqing was very powerful and it was difficult to track him. As for the 60 Imperial Guards and the 2 commanders, they were all powerful and well-equipped elites. After the first round of battle, only 5 Imperial Guards were killed and 12 were injured. Both sides paused their attacks. The 200 or so Empyrean gods under the fifth prince's command all fled in fear. The 2 upper Divine Lords covered the fifth prince and took the opportunity to retreat to the edge of the battlefield. This was the crown prince of the divine country, the future monarch. How could he stay in the middle of a chaotic battle? The other 3 upper Divine Lords quickly commanded the 80 lower Divine Lords to form a battle formation in the sky. The third prince also took the opportunity to command the Imperial Guards to change to another defensive battle formation. He did not hope to kill many people, only to reduce the number of casualties. These 50 or so Imperial Guards were his treasures. His heart would ache if any of them died. If more than half of them died, he would really want to cry, but no tears would come out. However, while the two sides were adjusting their battle formations, Ji Tianqing took the opportunity to stir up trouble again. He used the Dragon Elephant Divine Fist with his left hand and attacked the lower Divine Lords in the east. His right hand waved the Burial of Heaven sword and released hundreds of lightning sword lights that enveloped dozens of Divine Lords. Boom! 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 The mountain-sized Dragon Elephant Divine Fist struck 6 lower Divine Lords with a loud bang. The 6 of them were smashed into meat paste and their godheads were also severely damaged. They had lost the ability to fight and fled into the distance in a panic. The 30 or so divine lords were also killed by the hundreds of lightning sword lights, and turned into a rain of blood and flesh. They did not even manage to protect their godheads and died on the spot. At the edge of the battlefield, the 5th prince saw this scene and was so angry that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. "Damned beast! You will die a horrible death. Kill him. Everyone surround him and kill him for this prince." The 5th prince roared at the top of his lungs, his eyes red with anger. No one knew that the reason he was so angry was not because he was grieving for those experts who had died. It was because half of the divine lords and elite experts had been lent to him by that faction. If one more person died today, he would have to pay an even higher price to become the monarch in the future. That faction had not helped him for free. Many divine lords received the order, and immediately used their ultimate killing moves to surround Ji Tianqing. Hundreds of glowing saber lights and sword shadows, which blotted out the sun, fell from the sky and bombarded Ji Tianqing. What was worse was that the 5th prince even shouted at the 3rd prince, "Third brother, as long as you retreat with the imperial guards, our grudge will be written off. Don't interfere in this matter and this prince will owe you a favor." How arrogant was the 5th prince before. Now, he had taken the initiative to beg for peace and lowered his head to the 3rd prince. It was obvious that he was really desperate. Of course, it was also obvious that his hatred for Ji Tianqing was bone deep. The 3rd prince hesitated for a moment and was struggling in his heart. However, he immediately came to his senses and shouted righteously, "5th prince, this prince is enforcing the law impartially. Don't make a mistake. It's not too late to stop now." He knew very well that the 5th prince's words could not be trusted. If he really took the imperial guards away and allowed the 5th prince to kill Ji Tianqing, he would have no hope of fighting for the throne. Chapter 30-24. Stop? I will teach you a lesson. The 5th prince was so angry that he almost vomited blood as he cursed with a livid expression. Everyone was taking revenge for personal grudges and using public resources for private purposes. They had a tacit understanding. At this juncture, the 3rd prince still had to pretend to be righteous. This made the 5th prince so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Seeing that the negotiation was not going to work, he could only order those Sir Gods to kill Ji Tianqing at all costs. Boom! 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 Divine arts that blotted out the sky suddenly engulfed Ji Tianqing. However, most of the divine arts attacks were blocked by the Imperial Guard's battle formation. A small number of blade lights and sword shadows hit Ji Tianqing, but they were either neutralized by him or blocked by him. He was pushed back 10,000 feet and only suffered some light injuries. This was not a big deal. He pounced toward another group of Sir Gods with murderous intent. Heavenly Dragon World / Sect returning swords. Ji Tianqing's fighting spirit was high. He exploded with his peak fighting strength and madly executed his sword Dao divine arts. At this moment, his fighting strength was comparable to a Sir God who had just reached the 8th degree realm. He was really invincible. Once those low-level Sir Gods were hit by his sword Dao divine arts, if they did not die, they would be seriously injured. As for the 3rd prince and the Imperial Guards, not only did they form a formation to block the attacks, they also frequently helped Ji Tianqing out. This made Ji Tianqing kill to his heart's content as he wantonly slaughtered the Sir Gods under the 5th prince. Very quickly 30 breaths passed. There were only about 50 low-level Sir Gods under the 5th prince and half of them were injured. Not long after the battle began, he had lost 50 low-level Sir Gods. Most of them were killed by Ji Tianqing. Only a dozen or so were killed by the Imperial Guards. This made the 5th prince so depressed that he vomited blood. He wished that he could personally go up and tear Ji Tianqing into pieces. However, 2 high-level Sir Gods kept protecting him and were determined not to let him go up. Helpless, the 5th prince could only order the 3 high-level Sir Gods to attack Ji Tianqing with all their might. They had to hold him back and stop him from wantonly slaughtering. Upon receiving the order, the 3 high-level divine lords charged towards Ji Tianqing without a care in the world, joining forces to besiege him. The three of them cooperated with each other very well. Their methods were sinister and ruthless. They used all kinds of divine abilities and absolute arts at their fingertips. They were veteran Sir Gods who had gone through thousands of battles. No matter how strong Ji Tianqing was, being entangled by the three of them, he wouldn't be able to escape in a short time. Moreover, there were still dozens of lower divine lords who were constantly casting spells to sneak attack him. Ji Tianqing immediately fell into a disadvantageous position. He was beaten back repeatedly by the three high-level divine lords and was exhausted from defending himself. However, he had been retreating to the edge of the battlefield. He was not seriously injured and was still in peak condition. Seeing him getting closer and closer to the fifth prince finally realized that something was wrong. What does this little bastard want to do? Escape? No. Is he trying to assassinate me? The fifth prince suddenly guessed the answer. He narrowed his eyes and grinned. I am the crown prince. How dare he assassinate me? What a lawless person. At the same time, he sent a voice transmission to the two high-level divine lords beside him. Song Yan Baizhu, take this opportunity to kill him. Song Yan was the black-robed, white-haired old man. He was the strongest of the 5 high-level divine lords. Baizhu was a middle-aged man who was as thin as a bamboo pole. His skin was as white as paper, and he knew more than 20 evil divine abilities. These two were the fifth prince's most trusted aides. Therefore, they would rather not participate in the battle and stay close to the fifth prince to protect him. However, Ji Tianqing was closing in on them, intending to assassinate the fifth prince. They no longer hesitated and stepped forward to stand in front of the fifth prince. While protecting the fifth prince, they stared at Ji Tianqing, ready to strike at any time. Ji Tianqing and the 3 high-level divine lords fought for more than 20 moves. Finally, he retreated to the edge of the battlefield, only 10,000 feet away from the fifth prince. He used a sword Dao divine ability to force the 3 high-level divine lords back. Then, he took the opportunity to use a divine ability secret art to assassinate the fifth prince. Sword piercing the 9 heavens. Suddenly, his body glowed with golden light, as dazzling as the sun. He held the huge sword of burial of heaven with both hands and unleashed 120% of his strength, slashing out a 1,000-foot-long sword. The huge sword was golden and dazzling as if it was real. It contained a divine might that could destroy heaven and earth. More than 60 kinds of divine patterns could be seen on the huge sword blade, as if they contained the truths of the great Tao. Before the sword light arrived, the terrifying slaughter sword intent had already suppressed Song Yan, Baizhu, and the fifth prince. The 3 of them looked serious and shocked as they used all their strength to block the attack. 9 Flames Dragon. Song Yan waved his palms and unleashed 9 colored divine flames, forming a long dragon of flames to block the huge sword's attack. Vanishing Illusion. Baizhu stretched out his pale hands and released black and white divine power, forming a huge roulette in front of the 3. Even the fifth prince took out an ancient bronze chessboard to block in front of him. Kaboom! The huge sword finally slashed down, instantly severing the long dragon of flames. Then the black and white roulette was also cut in half by the huge sword. Bam! In the end, the huge sword, which had been weakened by 40%, struck the ancient bronze chessboard with an earth-shattering boom. The ancient bronze chessboard trembled violently. The fifth prince's face turned pale as he was sent flying. While he was still in midair, he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Clearly, he had been injured by the sword. His internal organs and meridians had all been damaged. However, the ancient bronze chessboard's defense was very strong. It was not cut in half and he managed to survive. Ji Tianqing had wanted to take advantage of the situation to pursue and kill the fifth prince, but Song Yan and Baizhu had risked their lives to protect the fifth prince. The other 3 high-level divine lords also took the opportunity to attack him fiercely. Ji Tianqing had no choice but to give up on assassinating the fifth prince and turn around to deal with the 3 high-level divine lords. This time, he was no longer suppressed by the 3 of them like before. He suddenly became fierce, and his fighting strength increased twofold. The 3 high-level divine lords found it difficult to deal with him. Heaven-piercing sword. Heaven-splitting sword. God-slaying sword. Burial of heaven. He used all sorts of sword Dao abilities one after the other, filling the sky with sword light. Invisible sword intent suppressed the 3 high-level divine lords, making them feel uneasy and fearful. After 10 some moves, a high-level divine lord's legs were severed, and he screamed as he fell into the rubble. After another 20 moves, a second high-level divine lord was cleaved in half, his blood spraying across the sky. This person's body was destroyed, and the 2 halves of his corpse fell into the rubble. The godhead hurriedly fled from West Wind Town, vanishing into the horizon. The remaining 2 high-level divine lords were attacking Ji Tianxing, and one of them had even been heavily injured. This greatly reduced the pressure on Ji Tianxing, and he was able to handle the situation with greater ease. While dealing with 2 high-level divine lords, he could also find time to kill those celestial gods who were trembling in fear and hiding in the distance. The 5th prince's heart was burning with worry. He ordered the 40-some low-level divine lords to work together to kill Ji Tianxing. But the 3rd prince and the imperial guards were doing their best to block the attacks and protect Ji Tianxing with all their strength. The 5th prince was completely anxious, so he had Song Yan and Bai Zhu join the battle. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.